Good evening and welcome to the April 7th meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees for the Village of Flossmoor. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Attorney Joe Miller. He is here in the place of Kathy Orr. She'll be back at our next meeting with us, but welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Just a couple of reminders before we start. This meeting is being streamed via Zoom for the convenience of those who are unable to make it in person. I will call names from the sign-in sheet of those who wish to speak tonight, and we just ask that you please introduce yourself with your name and your address. Limit your comments to 5 minutes per person for a total public comment time of no more than 30 minutes, and that you address the public body at large and not a single member of staff. With that, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 7:03. Clerk McGavin, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott. Present. Trustee Daggett.
Here.
Trustee Driscoll.
Here.
Trustee Lofton.
Here.
Trustee Mitra.
Here.
Trustee Mustafa.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Present. Thank you so much. We have a quorum. We just have one person signed up to speak tonight. That's Miss Andrea Perry. Welcome.
Good evening, Andrea Perry. According to the March 3rd, 2025 board meeting minutes, she, the village manager Wachtel, discussed the health of the general fund and noted that the audited fund balance as of April 2024 was $8.3 million. In discussing this, she used a PowerPoint presentation, including a display of various reports. For the sake of transparency and accountability, why wasn't this significant critical information included in the information pack? Why is it not available on the website? I want to be provided with a copy of this presentation. Please advise me of how I can get a copy of this presentation. I contrast this to the approximately 23 pages in the same meeting packet that was devoted to the presentation of the possible Flossmoor smokehouse. Actions like this is the basis of my lack of trust and my concerns regarding the leadership and management of Flossmoor. I expect better, I demand better. An article from Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, Harvard Kennedy School, entitled, "Can Democracy Survive in the Information Age?" It says, democracy is built on the crucial compact that citizens will have access to reliable information and can use that information to participate in government, civic, and corporate decision-making. Lack of accurate information, misinformation, and disinformation jeopardizes our democracy and gives rise to abuse of power and failure to have leadership and management acting for the best interest of the people that they are elected or hired to serve. Transparency, monitoring, accountability are must to ensure that our leadership and management carry out their fiduciary responsibilities. I expect this from the elected and hired leadership and management of Flossmoor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Perry. Just for everybody who's following along, there is a budget on our finance page on the website, and then also a copy of the preliminary budget on that website as well. Thank you.
I want information. I want as is. I don't want, I want like you have financial information that is what was.
The preliminary budget's on the website too, so you can go there to find it.
That's not the information I'm asking for.
Even it is, isn't it? That you just asked.
Preliminary means it's possible, it's to come. I want actual.
Well, we're discussing the preliminary, so it's not approved yet. You're right, we're going through that.
The budget doesn't become final until it's approved.
I don't want a budget, I want actual.
The presentation, are you asking about?
Well, you'd have to go back through the years to get those. Is that what you're saying? You want
previous copies of the budget? Because I don't really understand what you're saying either.
No, what I wanted was she gave a presentation last time. I did not, it was not provided. The PowerPoint presentation that was on March 3rd,
The
2025.
synopsis.
So we can get you that. If you'd like to submit a FOIA request to info@flossmoor.org, we can get that for you.
And is it a FOIA?
Yes, please. Yes.
So, okay, Freedom of Information Act.
Yes, ma'am.
And I submit that.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I've got a proclamation, the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and I'm going to ask Tristan Shaw, our chair of the Green Commission, to go ahead and join me at the front for this proclamation. This is something we've done every year for at least the past 5 years, right, Village Manager?
Is that a fur on your back? Or,
It's a jack pine.
Oh, okay. Not a deciduous tree today.
No, it is, it's a native species to, outside of Lake Michigan. It's a host species to about 200 miles of butterflies.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm going to stand.
Oh.
So the Mayor's Monarch Pledge is something that we've done for the past 5 years or so. To take the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, you have to commit to doing at least 3 of 30 action items. To be in the mayor's leadership circle, you have to complete 8 tasks. And to be in the champion level, you have to complete 24 of the 30 tasks. Right. So the Village of Flossmoor, we're at about 14, 16 of those tasks, which is actually really good. Most people are lucky to get 3 or 8, but we've got into the teens. And it's a huge amount of work. I presented at the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus in January about our efforts in order to encourage other people throughout the region to also sign on to take the Mayor's Monarch Pledge and improve sustainability efforts in their community. So thank you. Tristan Shaw, as the chair of the Green Commission, is also co-owner of Possibility Place. He has been instrumental in us getting some really impressive grants, over $30,000 to help plant 300 trees in one day. He was out there with his own equipment from his business, helping us get the holes prepped and the trees placed. And also, he's been instrumental in getting us native plant sales and distributing free milkweed to our community members. So those are just some of the great attributes of Tristan Shaw.
Did you enjoy running the machine?
I did. He let me try it. He let me run the auger. It was, and I didn't even sign a waiver. Anyway, with that, whereas the Village of Flossmoor and its residents value the natural surroundings that make Flossmoor a beautiful community, and whereas Flossmoor residents embrace efforts to lead a more sustainable lifestyle, as evidenced by community initiatives like Plant the Gem, Recyclepalooza, resident beekeeping, and the Flossmoor Seed Library. And whereas over time, the natural habitat of the monarch butterfly in North America has been degraded by human actions, and as a result, the species is in grave decline. And whereas every resident can help revive the monarch butterfly by taking simple actions like planting milkweed and nectar-producing plants. And whereas the Flossmoor Green Commission has researched the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, a program that capitalizes on the influence of elected officials to gain citizen support for monarch habitat restoration. And whereas the Flossmoor Green Commission recommends that Mayor Michelle A. Nelson become a signatory of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and that the Village of Flossmoor take steps to become a monarch champion city. And now, therefore, I, Michelle A. Nelson, endorse the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. I encourage the Green Commission, village staff, and community members to work towards implementing the action items outlined by the National Wildlife Federation in order to preserve the monarch butterfly for generations of Flossmoor residents to come. Dated the 7th day of April, 2025.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you to Tristan and the Green Commission, and Public Works has been a huge part of that effort too. Staff, Stephanie, have been helping organize our events, and then of course our friends with the Hidden Gem Half Marathon, Flossmoor's Future, and all of the residents in the high school. So many people have jumped on to really help with this. It's a huge team effort, so thank you. get an approval of the motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved. Second?
Is there anything anybody would like pulled off for discussion?
Yes. Number 3 and number 4.
Okay, anything else? All right, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda item number 2 and 5?
So moved. Second?
Clerk Lagaba, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Bradley Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Daggett?
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll?
Yes.
Trustee Lofton?
Yes.
Trustee Mitros?
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the presentation of bills for approval and payment as adopted by the Finance Committee on April 7th?
So moved. Second?
Thank you so much. Since Trustee Mustafa asked for this to be pulled off, we'll start with comments from Trustee Mustafa.
Good evening. I have asked to pull this off with just some questions which are intended for clarification. The first one, please turn to page 24 of your packet under GBJ Sales LLC. I'm just curious, we mentioned super degreaser, $783.35, so I'm just curious as to what that is.
Hi, that sewer degreaser is a commercial heavy-grade degreaser we use in our lift stations to break up grease. $780 seems like a lot of money, but that's a lot of quantity, and it's grease packets we drop in there throughout the year, and we restock it every year, and they help the grease actually break up the lift stations so they don't clog up our lift station pumps.
Well, honestly, I guess you would expect me to be honest, right, Jen? Okay. I didn't question the amount. I was confused about what, and why, so thank you. The second one, and I'm trying to do these in alphabetical order to make it easier. There's a charge for Northwestern. It has to do with training, and my understanding is that this could be something regularly done. Let me find the page. Yes. Page 28, Northwestern University Merkel School of Police Staff and Command. Is this regular training, periodic?
No, it's not regular or periodic. It's when our officers become sergeants, we send them to command school. It's not mandatory that we do this, but this is great preparation as they move forward and move upward in the ranks.
Okay. And it's my understanding from what I've been, what I've talked about probably since Chief Canlighter was here, is that training exceeds the state requirement.
Yes, you don't have to go there, but this is, as they move up, should become commanders, the deputy chiefs, or even chiefs. It's great to have this in on your resume.
Okay, thank you. And just another testament to how well trained our police department is. Okay, thank you. So the next one is, please help me with, I never get this right, Ottenson? Otteson, okay. So alphabetically, just on page 28, same page as the Northwestern, we see 2 line items, one labor and one retainer. So just to remind me, the retainer doesn't cover labor fees?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there any reason that we couldn't include it in retainer? Maybe I'm stretching.
Am I hitting the wrong button? Oh, there we go. If the village wanted to amend the retainer to include other things, and we could have a discussion about that, we would then do a review, and it would obviously probably change the amount. So it would have to take a review. Usually we do these as a review after a period, like every couple of years we'll review it. Actually, quite honestly, for most of our clients, we don't have the retainers anymore because it was quite honestly either it was getting abused or we were making almost too much money on it. So it's almost fair to go hourly, but yeah, that's what you had, so we're fine with that, but that would be something that the board said, or we got a call from the village manager asking to review, we would have people review it. I couldn't tell you what the amount would be though, obviously.
Well, I appreciate your candor, and that's good information. I think, especially in these times when We could be facing a different economic climate. We also know that we're faced with some unknowns. It might be good to review. Would we be up for a review soon, or 2 years?
If I can add to that, the retainer status is really a carryover from Kathy, and she brought that to the firm, as Joe alluded to. The retainer traditionally covers kind of your standard course of business, attending meetings, preparing agreements, preparing ordinances, kind of the run-of-the-mill municipal attorney work that's done. Labor tends to have more of ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. So when you're paying for, negotiations, contract negotiations, or going to an arbitration, or dealing with personnel issues or new laws that come into effect and we need policies reviewed. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend that we continue to pay for our costs as we incur them on the labor side, as opposed to trying to guess that and capture it within a retainer. I think the other really benefit we have to our retainer situation is all of our TIF and economic development work is covered under there. I know that's not true for all of the clients that Kathy has. So that's some additional background.
So a follow-up question, and I really didn't expect I'd get into this much helpful information, but does Addison charge to do that review of what we've been spending money on?
In regards to, if you ask for a retainer review, it's something that our staff generally does, so it's not going to be attorney time. We have a business manager who takes a look at that.
So I would like to leave that on the table because, Bridget, as you're aware, I came in and I looked at all invoices from 2021 to the current for all legal services. And even though we do have the retainer, there are regularly other legal fees that are not labor. And it might be helpful going forward to look at it, especially if it's staff and not an attorney doing the review. And then we could confirm that the $12,000 a month is what we want to continue. So I'd like to leave that open for the board to consider going forward.
What do you mean leave open?
That we would bring it back around for discussion and perhaps to have a motion to do that. That's what I would like to just...
Usually in labor, we have a different law firm that handles human resources and negotiates our...
At one point we did. Now it's under Addison, a different
Oh, it
attorney.
is?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Denolfo, but
Oh, okay. I didn't
but this
realize
the
he was
same
there.
firm.
Okay.
Exactly, yes. And then the additional other legal services that trustee Mustafa was referring to, I think is like our no cash bid work and tax exemption work. That's done through Scott Dillner, which is a completely different firm than Addison.
Yes, and I did ask you about that, how we had chosen that firm, but I'm referring to the Addison charges that were specifically performed by Attorney Orr, because there were additional charges outside of the $12,000. So again, I would like to consider a review and not to make a motion at this time, but moving forward to make a motion to do a review. So we're sure that we're spending prudently and getting the services within the amount of money that we think is reasonable.
A question, just for clarity, the labor charges are the hourly charges, is that correct?
That's my understanding. Just to the village manager's point, like for the retainers that I think I maintain one or two, it's generally limited to communications and attendance at the meetings, and then everything else is hourly. So the fact that you have the TIF and that work in there, that equates to something that's a little bit different than for arbitration hearings. I wouldn't get into the weeds, but obviously you could be talking thousands of dollars in legal fees if you go all the way to arbitration or something like that.
So I think what I'd like to do is maybe check around with some other municipalities to see what they're spending, because I feel like we're getting probably a pretty good deal from Kathy Orr with her experience and with all of the extra things that she does for us.
That's reasonable to check with other municipalities. I just don't want to close the door that we don't at least think about it.
I also don't want to see it jump.
Well, a review doesn't tie our hands that we have to change. It just tells us we're doing it correctly.
she might want it to jump though. They might say, we're getting too good of a deal.
Then we ask her in front, are you gonna make us jump if we review? Just like with property taxes, if they go up, you get a letter that they don't raise them. So we could always ask her. She knows you well enough to be honest about it. Yeah. All right, so the other thing I had was a question about a retail coach. So that would be our, is it 32? Thanks for helping. I'm having a hard time here. Right, it's under the T. The, thanks, sir. Please remind me, when are we going to be asked to approve another contract for them?
It would be either at the next board meeting or the first meeting in May. It runs with the fiscal year.
Okay, and please help me understand why they charge $771 for the presentation.
Those were billable expenses outside of the contract.
Okay, so our contract is written that excludes, okay. All right. So that's all I have for this one. Number 4 is.
Oh, wait, hold on, we're on number 3. Any other questions from the other trustees on this item? Trustee Mitros?
No.
Trustee Lofton?
No.
Trustee Driscoll?
No,
Trustee Daggett?
just to clarify, so Trustee Mustafa, what you're asking for is go ahead and approve the bills tonight, or at least vote on that, but then in the future have a discussion item.
Right,
Okay.
right. And
Yeah.
I'm taking this direction because this is an aside. Clerk Legalbo made a very good observation at the last meeting that you handle what you're doing now. I know this is not pertaining to minutes, but you handle what you're doing now, approve it, and then move forward. So I'm just taking that as an approach.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Bradley Scott?
No.
Thank you. Clerk Legalbo, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott. Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the purchase of a storage area network?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. Presenting is Assistant Village Manager Jonathan Vogue. Trustee Mustafa, since you have the question on this, do you want him to present or do you want to just jump into your questions?
We can just jump into questions and then you'll elaborate on it. Okay. So could you explain a little bit more what is a storage area network?
So it's, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's for block storage of material, so it's pretty much the main flash storage device, if you think about it that way, or the on-demand storage device for a network. This one also interacts with all our bigger controllers, as well as all of our cloud systems and everything else. Okay. So it can be used for some of our backups, but it's all our on-demand right now to make our network work.
And help me understand, there's a 5-year duration, and why 5 years? Why so short?
Yeah, so usually, so it's always been 5 years as part of the capital program, and that's something that we've had set up before. The reason why I pointed out the 5 years specifically on this one is because the last couple of cycles, we've done 3-year warranties on a 5-year product. So we've been spending a lot in year 4 and 5 to make sure that those products are still salvageable if anything goes wrong. And this is such an essential device that if something goes wrong, you want it covered. So can you get probably 7 years out of it if you needed to? You probably could, and we could always get to that point once we get there. This one we're currently on, we got 6 years out of. We extended by 1 year as they try to look at what the right size of our sand should be. Our solid state sand that we have upstairs is a little oversized for what we need. So we kind of went with a smaller setup this time that would still provide enough power for what we're going to use it for.
Okay, thank you. So I saved the best for last.
Okay.
Congratulations. You came in almost $15,000 under budget.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Part of this is because of the work we're doing with Prescient and our providers, I think the last 2 years in IT, we've come substantially under budget, and the idea is that we want all staff to have the best equipment possible for getting their jobs done efficiently, but that doesn't mean that maybe we can consolidate some of those things while we give them powerful equipment. So that's been the goal, and I think the bids helped on this one, so thank you. Any questions?
Other questions? Trustee Bradley Scott.
No other questions. This looks great.
Thank you.
Trustee Daggett.
Just for curiosity, so when you said we had, the equipment we have right now is 5 years old?
6, yeah.
6, okay, 6 years old. So is there a pretty significant jump in technology in what we're getting in the new compared to the old? I mean, it's all solid state.
It's not as different as you would think. I think the biggest difference is that it has more flexibility with the cloud than before, so everything is more cloud ready. But it's, I think we were using the same kind of product or the same array for our SAM devices, or how we set them up. We're setting it up differently this time because I think the company that did the analysis for us went, I think you're a little oversized for that. So.
Okay. And will this be used in our keeping of records as we take the microfiche into, or is that
No.
separate?
All of our Laserfiche stuff will be in the cloud, so there'll be backups, like if there's our emergency backups, but as far as our cloud, because it's going to be through both Windows SharePoint as well as Laserfiche, it's going to be in exactly 4 places in the cloud if something went catastrophically wrong.
Okay, cool. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Trustee Driscoll.
No questions.
Trustee Lofton.
No, but just to say you put a lot of thought in the management of the equipment and would save $15,000 as a result of it, so thank you.
No problem.
That's good.
Jonathan, isn't like the useful life of this type of, it's about 5 to 7 years?
Yeah.
Because someone told me that the other day, and I was amazed, because I had a 7-year-old laptop that I used for work. It's a company computer, and I was having problems with it, and I'm like, oh, it's 7 years old, that's junk, you got to upgrade, and I did.
Yeah.
But I was just surprised to hear that, so.
It's good to, we try to stay with specific brands and different things that we know if we had to upgrade or if we had to fix them, that they're able to be. So that's why we're sticking with Dell, and their government contracting is pretty good too. So so we've been able to really focus on keeping stuff as long as we can.
Good job.
And you're not worried about needing to upsize anytime soon during this 5-year period?
No, not for that kind of infrastructure. I think most of, we've been, just like all the other departments have been doing, we've been taking a year-by-year look at our capital plan, so that way, if there are changes in tech, we're making those adjustments for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20.
Great, thank you so much. Clerk Lodavo, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. There are no formal reports of committees or commissions today, but want to thank everybody who came out to help us pick up garbage for the South Lane cleanup on Saturday morning. It was cold, but it was a lot of fun. We made some new friends and appreciate everybody's effort there, especially Public Works staff that was also out with us, and the HF High School campus, and all of our neighbors. Next up, can I get a motion to approve the contract award for Flossmoor Road Viaduct Drainage Improvement Phase 3?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much for presenting. We have the Director of Public Works, John Bonke. Welcome.
Hi everyone.
Hi, John.
Included in the FY25 budget is $500,000 in the Streets and Storm Sewer Improvement Fund and $1.5 million in the General Fund for the construction of the Phase 3 Viaduct Drainage Improvements Project. The Phase 3 project includes the installation of an 84-inch storm sewer on Lawrence Crescent from the newly constructed Heather Hill Detention Basin by the Heather Hill Elementary School to the existing 60-inch storm sewer on Maryland Avenue that was constructed as part of the Phase 1 Berry Lane drainage improvement projects. The Phase 3 project will be partially funded with 2 DCEO grants that total $1.5 million, which offsets the general fund budget allocation. The DCEO grant funds will be expended first on the project if approved, and followed by the Streets and Storm Sewer Improvement Fund monies. On March 20th, bids were open for the project. 6 bids were received. 1 bid alternate was included in the bid package. This alternate was for replacing 2 proposed 9-foot diameter storm manholes with 2 84-inch concrete pipe tees with manhole risers. This alternate was added as an addendum after a bidder inquired on whether we would be interested in allowing this substitution as a value engineering option on the project. The lowest bid was received from Aries Inc. in the amount of with the base bid plus alternate amount of $1,549,520. Their bid came in to approximately $211,000 under the engineer's cost opinion for the project and under $450,000 under the budget allocation for the project. Given the cost savings of the bid alternate, Public Works recommends that the alternate is accepted in the contractor award if approved. Aries Inc. has completed similar work in the village. This includes emergency water and sewer work, but also the Berry Lane drainage improvements work, which was phase 1 of this overall program. Aries has been very good to work with, and the work has been excellent. Attached for reference is an award recommendation letter from Baxter Woman and a bid tab for your reference. Since a portion of this project will be funded through 2 grants from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, there is a required business enterprise program goal of 28% for the project. This is determined by the DCEO, and the village has no input on this. 18% of the grant funds must go to minority-owned business enterprises, MBEs or WMBEs, and 10% of the grant funds must go to women-owned businesses, WBEs or WMBEs. Aries Inc. has indicated that their bid that they will fully meet this BEP goal requirement on their project by the way of using subcontracting. This will be for the trucking work majority and also the paving work on the project. It should also be noted that Aries Inc. is also a veteran-owned business. So with the above information in mind, Public Works staff recommends that the Mayor and Board of Trustees approve a contract with Aries Inc. of Joliet, Illinois, and the base bid plus alternate amount of $1,549,520.00. Following a pre-con meeting with the contractor, staff will plan a public open house for the project, which will be anticipated to come later this month. The next phase of the overall project, which is phase 4, or the Army Corps project, should be bid out of next month, and that project should be starting probably early summer. The final phase, or phase 5 of the project, that'll take us from, I guess that'd be Hawthorne, or a little south of Hawthorne, all the way to the viaduct, is slated to be bid later this summer, with construction starting in the fall. The timing of this final phase is dependent on the timing of the outstanding grant applications that are currently pending. We have a MWD Stormwater Partnership application out there, we have a FEMA BRIC application out there, and we have a FEMA HMGP application out there. So we're waiting to see the results of those applications and see if they're successful or not, and then we'll know better the timing of phase 5. So, and at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Great news all around. Can you explain to folks the difference between the 2 9-foot diameter manholes and the 84-inch concrete tees? Why the big cost difference?
So basically, the 9-foot diameter manholes are very large, a lot of weight, and they're built in sections. So there's more precast work to build a 9-foot diameter manhole, and then they have to reduce the size of the 9-foot down to 4 foot to come up for the last 1 or 2 sections before we get to the manhole cover at the street level. They're expensive. So another idea or thing we could do is when they're casting an 84-inch pipe, because all the pipe on this project is custom. It's not sitting on somebody's yard or on a shelf somewhere. It's all made for the project, so they could cast the 84-inch pipe with a 4-foot riser section out of the pipe as a T almost, if you will, and then they can use 4-foot manhole sections up to the surface of where the manhole cover would be. So it's cheaper to do it that way. It's something one of the contractors, actually it was Aries who brought it up and asked us if we'd be interested in it, and so we put it in there as an alternate so we could get pricing on it. Some of the contractors didn't give us any credit for it, but some of them gave us pretty substantial credit. Aries' bid was around $36,000. So, and I should also know the big reason the cost savings isn't just the casting work. That 84-inch T is put in as a section of pipe, and they keep going. To build that manhole, they have to put the last piece of pipe, start building the manhole, mortar all the openings around the pipe in the manhole, and that's probably 4 to 5 hours work for each manhole. Plus the work is just getting the manhole built, and it's a bigger excavation. So
the alternative is more of a standard operation versus a custom build.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it still works fine because the 4-foot riser and the T will still have a ladder inside of it. We could still access it if we have to get in there for maintenance. But anytime we're going in something that deep, we're using our tripod anyways, so I'm not really too concerned about the configuration at the bottom and the T or anything, because they're gonna be lower down there anyways in a harness if they have to go down there.
Great, thank you so much. Trustee Bradley Scott, any questions?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation, John. I was going to ask about that 9-foot diameter storm manhole. When we look at what we received from our grants previously and where we are to finish the project, what do we have in-house, in hand received?
So we haven't received any of the money yet. This is all reimbursable type grants. So this 1.5 million, we will have to front that money and pay for it out of the general fund and then get reimbursement from the DCO. Part of that process, obviously we have to meet the requirements for the DEP requirements and the other project requirements. So I've already been reporting on these grants, so we have them in place and in hand basically, so we're ready to spend on them, if that helps. So basically we have the 1.5 million for this phase. We have another $500,000 approved that we're reporting on. That's for that's going to be used toward probably phase 5 or even phase 4 for part of the match monies. And then we still have another $1 million out there that's in the state capital bill that we haven't received paperwork on. That isn't included in your budget document because until we get the paperwork on it, we don't assume we have it, right? So
everything that we had received in the past hasn't been modified at all from the state or federal government, given how funds have been moved around?
So nothing. We don't have any federal money on this project. Only the $200,000 we did get from Senator Durbin at the federal level, and we're still waiting on that reimbursement check. So I think it may be delayed due to what's going on in DC right now. That $200,000. So we did apply for it months ago. We're still waiting on basically the update on it. So
I know from the fiscal year 25 appropriations, Congresswoman Kelly had set aside several million for Section 219 grant funds for communities. No dollar amounts were listed, but Flossmoor was one of the communities she had listed in that set aside. And without a budget being approved at the federal level, those are all in limbo right now. So actually, I think that's something we're going to be talking about later this week with our federal lobbyists. But those are the only dollars, and that hadn't been queued up for any phase. That would have been new monies coming in, similar to the 3 grants that John referenced earlier that we have in application right now.
Fantastic. Okay, so I really like the breakdown and instructions that we received regarding the DCEO requirements, where 18% were minority-owned and then 10% women-owned businesses. I just want some education behind this, so please excuse the question. In terms of how this particular fund is able to exercise how they want us to hire, are we as a town able to do the same thing? I know we talked about it and we said we can't do certain things, but how are we able to implement this type of strategic plan so that any contractors that are outsourced are living up to hiring women and minority-owned businesses?
yeah, that's a great question. So we have talked about this in the past. I don't know all the details of how we would get there, but probably one thing we would have to do as a village, we'd have to do a formal program, like a DEP program, and we would probably involve some kind of study, a disparity study, I believe it's called, and we would have to get that done, and that would actually determine percentages, I guess, based on dollar amounts of contracts, I believe, and stuff, and that would give us our percentages we would have to follow ourselves if we wish to do it. If the board decided to go that route, we could do that, so.
Mr. Miller can elaborate.
Yeah, probably much better than I can.
One of the difficulties that you have in implementing such a program is that under Illinois law, there's bidding requirements. So you're going to the least responsible bidder, so you're not able to necessarily say, okay, this part, because you're a steward, you're a fiduciary of the municipality's money. So you're not able to institute those type of requirements per se because of the bidding requirements. So you're not, the statute doesn't say, you can allocate on public funding a certain amount being of a for, 18% for a minority business or 10% for a woman-owned business. So you are subject to those bidding requirements, and that's what makes it, really for my purposes, you wouldn't be able to be in violation of the bidding statute by hitting that requirement. So look, if you have a bid and it ends up actually meeting that as maybe some goal that you have, but I wouldn't put it as a new policy, because I'd be concerned about being in compliance with the bidding statute of the state of Illinois for municipalities.
And that makes complete sense of, inserting regards to what you said. As a board, we have hoped for, more equitable opportunities for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. Are we wasting our breath by having that hope? How do we get that to be something that is a reality?
I'm not saying that you're wasting your breath by, saying I want to see more minority and women-owned businesses involved here. What I'm saying to you is that you are not going to be able to usurp a lower bidder because they don't fit that, they're not part of that goal. So that would be my concern. The fact that I think, obviously, I love the ideal of that, but I also have to advise, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I have to make sure that we follow the law. So you're not going to be able to say, even though, the, John Doe business is $100,000 lower, that we're going to give it to Joe Miller because we want that goal, because then you're going to have you could potentially have a problem from residents and citizens complaining that you're not in compliance with the statute. But yeah, obviously, I think the city of Chicago actually came up with some issues in regards to this as well, but that's going to be your concern. So for my purposes, what I would say is, I don't think you're wasting your breath, but I don't think you're going to be able to necessarily require it when the bid packets are reviewed.
Thank you for that. Those were all of my questions.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
I'll ask my question related to the same topic. 18% has to be MBEs or WMBEs, and 10% WBEs or WMBEs. So 28% could be women.
It could be both, I believe, yeah. So basically how we do this is part of the grant with the DCO, both grants. They sent us a letter when we got our final grant paperwork, and they gave us these percentages, and also they gave us a lot of their paperwork and documentation that the contractors filled out in their bid packet, and then they have to finalize that information. We have to submit it to DCO, and then they have to approve it before we even put a shovel in the ground or start work, which is good. So, So actually the contractors the subs that they claim are gonna fulfill the requirement are certified, reviewed by DCO, and they have to concur with it before they'll let us move ahead with it. Or at least before we'll ask for money from them. So I'll tell you, we're gonna make sure they're okay with it before we release a contractor to go, because I don't wanna risk any of our funds and not have a chance of getting it all back, fulfilling our grant, receipt, so.
Who assures on site that they're complying with this?
Actually, there's nothing on site or like interviews with the staff on these requirements. This is strictly if the company that's hiring, this is the subcontractor company, and one is a trucking company, another one is Lincoln Paving, I believe. I forget which one is the WB and MB. I think the MB is Lincoln Paving, but anyways, it's just the company itself. If they're registered as a WB or MB, then they, and their money that they're paid from the prime contractor has to meet those percentages of the grant amount.
So the reason I'm asking is because, I don't know if you remember, I called you and I said, I don't see anybody out here.
Yeah, so that was on the Army Corps projects, a little different, but that was still goals with the Army Corps. They don't have requirements, they have goals, probably much for the same reason Mr. Miller's speaking of. But it doesn't mean the workforce has to represent what the... And
that's what you told me at the time. You said, wish I could, but I don't have anything that I can do about it. Okay. Yeah. All right, so my other question is, first, I'm glad that you've been satisfied with Erie, but I just wanted to ask, have we had any budget adjustments because they went over?
I don't believe on Berry Lane, the first phase, we did have budget amendments, but it was because I I believe we added work to their contract. It wasn't something that, they brought forward as a change order or something. They're really good about not hitting us for change orders unless it's something we ask for.
As I recall, we added the water main because we had the street open.
Yeah, well, that was bid. That was part of the bid.
Yeah.
I remember that water we had, so.
Okay, I have two more things, so this is one of the two. Just a nudge or a request. Aries is conscientious, but perhaps subs don't always do things. Can a reminder be given to them to, like, the signage if, if residents need signs to know what's going on? The work site afterwards, because when they were on Berry Lane, we had the problems with the manhole being totally open and debris in the street that could be dangerous and no signs to know. So just those type of things. It may not have been airy, but it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember some of those instances. Yeah, we plan on, that's gonna be tightened up on this phase, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we wanna have a fully, at the end of the day, we want a fully construction fence off, secure, excavation, everything where they're at, so it's safe, absolutely.
Sounds good, thank you. So the last thing is related to the bid, and I'm sure you can explain this. So, do you have the same, it's this thing?
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at, for example, line 19, where we talk about trench backfill, and if you look at, the engineer said 435,500, and Aries said not $65 unit price, but $1, and it would be 6,700 for backfill. So where'd they? So tell me, what is that?
So basically, that's a good point. So trench backfill, it's a tricky pay item because it's not measured. It's basically on the length of the pipe that goes in the ground. They go off an IEPA water and sewer manual chart for the volume of trench backfill they're going to get paid on the job. And they smart contractors, even though us engineers like to put try to put a real value on it, so everything's got a value that's accurate somewhat. The contractors a lot of times will put $1 on it or something, or 50 cents, just like prime oil on asphalt, because they're going to put their costs in another pay item that they're going to get measured for and get paid for. If that makes sense.
So could it be that it's in line 11?
It could be.
Could you look at what the engineering estimate is and then look at what Aries bid and?
Yeah, it more likely would be. That's where most of them would put it, like with the pipe cost, because that's getting measured by the foot. So that would be a spot they could put it, but they could put it anywhere. There's no rules or rhyme or reason really. They could put it wherever suits them for, basically to get covered. So basically, trench backfill, a lot of times they know what it's going to cost for putting the pipe, buying the pipe, put it in with the stone. They don't necessarily, in this case, I can't speak for them because I don't know how they put their bid together, but they probably just put it with the pipe cost, so that could have been a reason why, because they're higher than the estimate of the engineer there. So
I don't want to assume. I just seeking clarity. When you look at the bid, do you look at these individual items and see, gee, where did they put it since it's not here? How did they get? You don't.
You can't, because per the public bid process, they could put any unit price they want. The total amount, as long as it all adds up at the bottom, the total is what you're basing it on. That's how public bid process works. So you can't scrutinize a unit price unless, basically there's no reason to scrutinize a unit price. I'd probably turn to.
Yeah, so as long as you're looking at the lowest responsible bid, the key is a responsible bid. If it's a responsible bid, now after you've approved a responsible bid, you may have some discussions in regards to them into certain aspects, but you're looking at that lowest responsible bid. So especially since, I think, the next lowest bid was about there's a $400,000 difference. So they were the lowest responsible bidder. Now, if you're finding that they're not meeting the specifications, that's a completely different thing.
Yes.
But it sounds like what I'm hearing is that they're meeting the specifications and that the total price ended up making them the lowest responsible bid. And I don't know if that's answering your question or not.
It probably does when I ask one more question. So the specifications are a separate part of the package.
Oh yes, yeah. The specification book is about
Okay.
inches thicker, so roughly, yeah, be happy to share with you if you'd like to see it, but it's.
John,
yeah, it's got
no.
everything. Right, it would really put you.
No, please. I appreciate your
I don't like
generosity,
radio.
but no, okay. You just want somebody to own your pain, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. That's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you, trustee Mitros.
So it's not so much how they get to the price, it's the price.
Yep.
Manhole covers we can't leave open, that's a good point,
Yeah.
Roz, I just wanted to
Yeah.
point out. I know these, the vaults are confined spaces.
Mhm.
The 8-foot T versus a 9-foot manhole, is that something that, OSHA's, I'm only worried that they would disallow that after we got it into the ground.
Oh, no, it's
So-
normally, it's normal, you could use them, we're actually have them designed on phase 4, the Army Corps portion has a couple of them because they're shallower.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's just, I'm sure that was the case, but I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Thank
question.
you, John.
Welcome.
Thank you, trustee Lofton.
John, Aries is going to meet the Business Enterprise Program goal by hiring MB and WMB subcontractors that they are working with now, or they're going to put this out to bid?
No, they already got the pricing from them because they basically, they'd be taking a big risk if they put a bid out there and they didn't get a price yet from those subs. Basically, yeah, they would get those pricing during their assembly of their bid, and then they would pricing from the subs and they would include it in their bids. So, yeah, I don't know, they would have the pricing already, I would imagine, for sure.
And the 18 and 10% respectively for minority businesses and women is based on the grant.
Yeah, the grant
not the whole
amount.
project.
Yeah, so the 28% is off the 1.5 million in grants we're using on this phase of the project, which is almost the whole project, basically, but yeah, so it's only 28% of that 1.5 million, or I forget the exact number that is, but several $100,000, so.
Do we know who these subcontractors are?
Yeah, the paving company is Lincoln Paving. They did I believe some of the milling work and stuff on the phase 1 project, Berry Lane. And the trucking company, I can't remember the name that they had on their form, but it was, they were registered with the city of Chicago and state of Illinois. Both companies are certified firms, so.
Now, does Aries keep a list of who these contractors are? 'Cause I'm trying to get to the whole idea of how we build this, which you've done a great job with, by the way.
Sure.
How do we build not only our recognition and knowledge of them, but how do we get them in the mix so they can bid on this job?
That's a good question. I'm sure they would probably share with it. I mean, all these contractors keep all these information on these firms, so they reach out to them when they have these requirements they have to meet, and they use them on other projects where they don't have to meet it as well either. Like they use Lincoln Paving, for instance, on phase 1 where I don't know if they even really, that was the Army Corps section or project contract. That was a goal, but they use them on other projects, so it's not just for the DBE work or DEP work, so if that makes sense.
So Attorney Miller, we won't be poaching if we take these companies that we're talking about on our own projects and go out and invite them to bid on them.
It just depends on what the amount of the project is, because you're gonna have to bid it depending on the amount of the project.
Anything over 25,000 a year, yeah.
Right, so with certain exceptions, so if it's a project that needs to be bid, you can let them know that you're having something that they can bid on, but you're not necessarily gonna hire them if they're not the lowest responsible bidder.
But we can definitely add them to our bidders list. To send out, yeah, absolutely. Some of them are on there already, so.
Thank you, trustee Driscoll.
Excellent presentation. I agree with the direction you're going, and look forward again to see the final product when we get to the last stage.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you, trustee Daggett.
Yeah, a couple questions. What's the planned duration of the project? How long is this one going to take?
This one should be starting mid-May, early May. I think, I don't have a date yet that they want to start, but they do want to, I know they want to get going. And the substantial completion date is August 15th. That was anticipation of school getting back in and want to have everything done other than the final possible restoration of putting grass seed or sod down or something.
Okay. Is there any potential crossover from this project in stage 4?
Absolutely, yeah. So this project, the detour route for this project, is gonna take, motorists down Sterling to like Hawthorne over to Douglas down to Scott and Lawrence around it. Because as they're doing the storm sewer, the road will be closed much like it was in Berry Lane and Maryland when they did the storm sewer on Bobolink. But yeah, the Army Corps project, is probably gonna be started in June, July, and probably lasting till September, October potentially, or probably no, we'll shorten it because it's a shorter length. It's only 500 feet, I think, or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, with all those things considered, I just want to reiterate, I think it's really important that we're exhaustive in our communication with the community who's going to be affected. I know there's a plan in place, but if there's any other ways to help, like any ideas coming in, I think it's good to just try and be as immersive with the community as you possibly can with the project. So I did have a couple questions about Trustee Bradley Scott's concerns and also Trustee Lofton. So when it comes to the rules of inviting businesses to bid, are there rules about specifically communicating with businesses to bid? Like, does the communication have to be the same to everyone, or can we identify businesses that we would like to participate and give them a specific invite to participate in the bid process?
You have to publish it. You have to publish a notice.
Okay.
All right, so that has to be done. There has to be a publication. A lot of times there's certain, for lack of a better term, trade journals, and that is also put in there. I don't have an issue, and I've never heard there being any being challenged that you notify bidders that you have a project that's going to be on. I've never had anyone take that to court. Maybe some people aren't happy about it, but too bad, so sad your dad. So for my purposes, that's okay. You can invite bidders, but you do have a publication requirement.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is the NFL has the Rooney Rule, which gets, a lot of criticism, but one of the things it does do is it allows more minorities to go through the process and learn from that process and how they could get better and eventually start winning bids. Is there rules about being able to go back to a business who submitted a bid and say, hey, here's a couple of things that you could have done different that might have brought you in, or is that stepping out of bounds?
So you're talking about after the project is done, or after the project is awarded?
After the bids are awarded.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just recognize we want to not be essentially trying to give someone what seems as an unfair advantage, because ultimately it's going to come down to pricing and qualifications. I don't have an issue with someone, I forgot your first name, sir.
Oh, John, that's okay.
If John said, hey, you called a business, you guys did an excellent job, and sometimes you will get a call from a bidder asking, why didn't you get it? I get that all the time, where a bidder says, well, I don't understand. Usually it's when they're the lowest responsible bidder, but maybe they didn't pass other aspects of their specifications weren't correct, so then you have that conversation. I don't have an issue the same. I would be cautious in how often you're doing that, because I'd be concerned that people are seeing that you're trying to maybe teach someone or coach someone how to pass your process rather than another company.
So maybe a better way to do it is just always have an open door policy. If anyone had a question after their bid was not awarded, they could always call and ask questions.
Yeah, and we always send a bid tab out to all the bidders that submitted a bid. And then we also hand that out to other companies that call and want a bid tab. It's all public information, so we hand that out and stuff. So absolutely, yeah. It's not a sealed process, so.
Yeah, I just think with the restrictions that we have, or not the restrictions, I guess is not the right way to put it, the laws that we have to make sure we abide by, it's a little bit heavier lift to move the needle on this, but I think there are things that we could do. So I think if we had some continual conversation about how to do that, I think this discussion has been good to just move that needle a little bit. I think that's all I have. When do we anticipate the open house for this being?
Hopefully later this month. We haven't got a date yet. We have to check the manager's office and find a date that works for everybody. And hopefully, if you we try to do a midweek, probably like the 3rd or 4th week of the month, potentially somewhere there where it fits good.
Will that be here at Village Hall?
Yeah, we have it right here in this room.
Could that be recorded and then put online for people?
It could. It might not be very beneficial in a recorded format. The reason why I say that is because it's not really a presentation. You just lay the tables out, put the plans out on tables, and invite the residents to come in and talk to us individually about the job. it's more of like a one-on-one interaction, and then that's also a good time where we collect information for email addresses for the project update emails and contact info. But yeah. But we have had the open houses, and also we'll go out and meet with residents. If they can't come to the open house, we'll make arrangements to go talk to them about it, about the project. We've done that before too, so.
Okay, I have an idea on that, but for the sake of time, I'll have conversations outside the meeting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clerk Gable, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the award of contract for the Flossmoor Road Viaduct Drainage Improvements Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Trustee Brumke.
Thank you. So as part of the Phase 3 project that we just discussed, construction engineering services will be needed to oversee and help manage the construction of the project. The project is slated to start the first or second week of May and be substantially complete by August 15th, with final completion on or before October 30th. Attached is a proposal from Baxter Woman for the construction engineering services for the project. Baxter Woman is completing the design engineering for the overall program, so it makes sense to have them complete the construction engineering services for continuity reasons. Since construction for this project will commence directly in the residential neighborhood, construction engineers are critical to ensure the work is done properly, safely, and in a timely manner. The proposed contract is comprised of 5 tasks, and the total not to exceed cost for this contract is $123,440. These services are budgeted for in the FY26 budget in the Streets and Storm Sewer Improvement Fund, and the following is a list of the tasks. Act as a village representative when we are not on site, project initiation, construction administration, the biggest part, field observation, which is full-time, 40 hours a week or more, for the duration of the project while the contractor is working, and completion project closeout. We do anticipate potentially with Phase 4 coming along also, there may be some overlap, so we may potentially see some cost savings on this contract if it's approved, and the next one for Phase 4, because they'll be probably getting built at the same time during the summer. So with the above information in mind, Public Works staff recommends that the mayor and the board trustees award the contract for the Flossmoor Road Viaduct Drainage Improvements Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services to Baxter Woman Consulting Engineers in the not to exceed amount of $123,440. And unfortunately, a representative from Baxter Woman could not attend tonight due to our meeting conflict. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
No, that's your recommendation. I mean, you've worked with Baxter Woodman through this project. I think the continuity is important on this project. So, yeah, no questions for me.
Thank you so much. Trustee Bradley Scott.
We kind of talked about it, or it was mentioned in the previous line item, but I did want to circle back because there were a couple of concerns maybe for me. In a few of our previous projects, specifically the Heather Hill Phase 2, there were, actually Phase 1 and Phase 2, there were some breaches of security at a couple of the sites. And so when we ask for number 1, scope of services as it pertains to their proposal, the number 1 is act as the owner's representation with duties, responsibilities, and limitations of authority as assigned. And then we get down to number 3, construction administration, part D, prepare construction contract change order and or work directives when authorized by the owner. And the village, in this case, would be the owner. Okay. So then we get to part 4, where we look at the field observation, maybe about halfway down, starting with engineers shall not supervise, direct, control, or have charge or authority over any contractor's work, nor shall the engineer have authority over or be responsible for the means, methods, techniques, consequences, or procedures of construction selected or used by any contractor, or the safety precautions and programs incident thereto, and security of safety at site, nor for any failure of any contractor to comply with laws or regulations applicable to such contractor's furnishing and performing of its work. Okay, so circling back to some of the things that were mentioned as it pertains to manholes, securing sites, as it pertains to construction signs and things to that nature. when we spoke about this in those other projects, we leaned on the contractors providing whatever their in-house service is to make sure that we maintain OSHA requirements and everything that needs to happen to keep the community safe. So in this instance, do we, in the contract book that you mentioned, are we telling them exactly what we're looking for in terms of all of those services instead of leaning to whatever resources of support that they have?
Yes, so the project manual does have all that safety requirements in there in terms of securing a job site, not leaving manholes open. It's ridiculous, but as much as it sounds, but it should not happen. But securing the site at the end of the day, keeping the site safe during the day when they're working. So that's all in that book. Unfortunately, we find ourselves reminding contractors almost every project of those requirements, even though it's in the book and they hear about it in every project they go to. A lot of this language in here for Baxter Women's proposal makes sense because we are not directing the workforce. We only provide, means and methods is up to the contractor for liability reasons. It's their workforce. If they do something that injures one of the workers, they did it. We didn't. We can recommend certain things. Obviously, we're going to tell them, keep the site secure, meet these requirements, clean it up, don't have any safety issues out here. But at the end of the day, they have to direct their workforce and do so to their supervisors. So if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
So I hear you and I understand exactly what you said. However, how do we, because the community may turn to Baxter and Woodman or the contractor that's providing services. However, 9 times out of 10, they're going to look at the village to be responsible to keep everyone safe, to make sure that the sites are secure, all of the above. So how do we provide the checks and balances? We provided the checks, how do we balance it?
So basically, the resident engineer who's going to be on the job, the same one we've had on the other phases, Dave Averick, is going to be our RE on this project. Dave's going to have to, he's watching them every day, he's going to be there all day with them, and he's got to remind the contractor if he sees somebody that isn't safe or is an issue, he brings it up to the contractor and has them address it before they leave at the end of the day. It isn't a perfect thing, but all we can do is keep harping on the contractor to stay on it, is all we can do.
Do we keep a report card of bad services and performances? So
it's not a report card, but we do document it in field reports, and they save it at the end of the job. Yeah, we don't have a grading system for these. I would tell you, if you rated most contractors, you probably would unfortunately find out that most of them probably get a D on that report card, unfortunately. As much as I would not want to say that here, but I will be honest. They're unfortunately not that great at it sometimes, so.
Okay, so then we received an email, the board received an email from a resident about the construction happening at Heather Hill Elementary School as it pertains to their expansion project. It's not a village project. However, again, because it is in town and we are a partner, in terms of making sure that everything is safe and secure, are we able to provide a best practice of how to keep everyone safe and secure so that there is no incident? Because if we're saying that these people have worked on projects before and those things happen, it kind of sounds like, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, we stay on top and watch them. The school project, we're not managing that. We're not out there watching the school project at all. I don't even know if we're even doing inspections on it because it's a school project and it's state controlled. So other than we can bring issues to their contractor there at the school and tell them they got to address it, but anything in a right of way we have control over. But they have a construction fence up, they have their site secured. I know residents are upset the sidewalk's closed, but I don't know why they really want to have it closed, but it's their construction entrance. They don't want to take a chance of a child or student walking across that construction entrance and falling or tripping because it's coarse rock and it's not really a safe surface to walk on. Yeah, I did see that email today though.
Yes, and so is it a possibility in going with that project, it's not ours, and the sidewalk is in city blocks, maybe 2 blocks away, are we able to provide a temporary safe passage or crossway so that people can remain safe and cars' attention can be directed to wherever our temporary crosswalk is located?
Yeah, I guess signage could be put up by the school or something, their contractor or something. Yeah, we would put that on them to do that. I mean, there are crosswalks down the street on both sides that are open. I suppose that could probably be done. That's something we could talk about with them, so.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Let me make sure that was it. Let's see. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brennan, I'm sorry, Trustee Mustafa.
Let's see. In your letter, on page 56, John. Well, before I start, thank you for presenting, and haven't seen you recently, so I appreciate you coming.
Thanks.
Number 4, field observation, full-time, 40 hours per week. But then, I don't know if it's boilerplate. If you turn to the next page, 58, item C, at the bottom, keep a daily record. It says, keep a daily record of the contractor's work on those days that the engineers are at the construction site. But it really shouldn't be on those days because they're there 40 hours.
They're only here when the contractor is there, so even though it says 40 hours, if it's a rain day and the contractor doesn't show up that day, we're not going to pay RE to sit in his car out there on the job while they're not. That's the reason for that.
Of course.
Yeah, and then if they stay later, kind of cover that point. If they are there 10 hours or 12 and RE has to stay there longer, they'll charge us the hours, and then it goes against the contract. And then once we get to the not to exceed amount of the contract, if that does occur, the last couple have been under, we would have to stop and talk to them about it and see if we'd have to do amendment or some kind of other arrangement. So
I understand what you're saying, but you can see why it's a little confusing.
A little bit, yeah, but it's it's the way it's worded. It's kind of
just confusing. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Mitros.
No questions.
Thank you, Trustee Lofton.
No questions.
Thank you, Trustee Driscoll.
Thanks for the presentation, John. No questions.
All right, Clerk McGovern, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mitros.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance of the Village of Flossmoor, Cook County, Illinois, approving a development agreement by and between the Village of Flossmoor and On the Fly Hospitality Group?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. We listened to a great presentation from On the Fly last meeting, and so this is just the formal agreement which they have already signed. Village Manager Wachtel, anything to add?
Nothing specifically. I highlighted within my memo several key points of the agreement. The format of the agreement is similar to what the board approved for the Flossmoor townhomes, Flossmoor Road townhomes project. Here, it's quite simple indeed. The village is agreeing to essentially give the land and support a Class 8 tax abatement. In exchange, the developer will be making the village whole for its share of property taxes owed to the village. And the agreement itself outlines the timeline by which the developer would have to submit plans for financing, receive plan and permit approvals. The village would not be relinquishing control of the property until On the Fly Hospitality has permits for construction, and they have 1 year to complete phase 1 of their proposal, and that's attached to the agreement itself. There will also be a $100,000 performance bond or letter of credit as security for the construction and completion of the project. Another provision within the agreement itself is the developer would have the ability to walk away from the agreement if there's anything unusual with respect to site conditions or not being able to receive permit approvals or that nature, which makes sense and is logical, in which case the village would assume ownership of the property again and we'd be able to move on. During the course of the term of the agreement, the village would not be able to market the property to any other developers. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on it. And with that, we would look for a motion for the board to approve the ordinance, which has the agreement attached to it.
Thank you. And just as a reminder for folks, this property was donated to the village by the Slowey family back in 2021. Trustee Driscoll, any questions or comments?
No questions. This pretty much just codifies everything we talked about last time with we want to see those provisions in there. We got that in the contract now. Good to go, and let's move forward on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
We don't have a phase 1 environmental on that property, do we? Yeah. It's never been done? Okay. So do you know if that's one of the things that they're going to be doing?
I would imagine so.
Okay. So if for some reason there is something that's found and it goes to a phase 2 and then a letter is required, it can take well over a year to get a clearance letter from the state. Is that built into the agreement?
There is the ability with, there's some general language about we have to look. Essentially, Joe, maybe you can help me there.
Page 69, perhaps? Village manager? 2.9.
I was thinking 7.4, but this is 2.9.
Yeah, 2.9 is the termination of the agreement. That would be an option.
Yeah, I think 7.4, I'm sorry. I think 7.4 talks about the time is of the essence, but are not deemed a material breach. So it provides provisions if, it's really not their fault per se, you would be able to extend the time.
Yeah, because it even says, part 2 of 2.9 says renegotiate the terms of the agreement, so we could do that then. Okay. That's the only thing that I see as a potential barrier on this one, is if that environmental comes back and something's been dumped on the property that they've got to remediate. Other than that, I think everything looks good, so no other questions.
Thank you. Trustee Brenda Scott.
If I can just get a reminder, I couldn't remember if this property was being listed with a broker. Are we having to pay any compensation? No? Okay. And then for the permits, are they paying for permits in-house, for village permits, or are they foregone?
They are, they're not paying for permits, but any out-of-pocket expenses that the village has to incur with respect to inspections, they will pay for those. And of course, there's going to be there may be, I don't know if there will or not, a state permit. I don't know if they're changing the entrance onto the property or anything like that. So there could be a state permit that they would go through the state for that.
Okay. So nothing out of pocket for the village?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
No, I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mitros.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Bridget, the 6 to 9 month period, when does that start when we approve this? In terms of permitting, financing, preliminary?
Yeah, within 60 days of the date of execution of the agreement, they have to start the process with the submission of a plan unit development, an application for the property to the Plan Commission, identification of existing natural and environmental resources and methods to protect the physical amenities, preliminary engineering information on existing and proposed sanitary, storm, and water service to the development.
It's going to happen in this
Within 60 days, right. That's the first benchmark. And those are all outlined in Article 2 of the agreement.
Right. Clerk Galvin, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Brenda Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Daggett.
Yes.
Trustee Driscoll.
Yes.
Trustee Lofton.
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Mustafa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Next up is a discussion item on water and sewer rates. And presenting, I have our head of finance, Anna Boa. Welcome. By the way, this was a very comprehensive outline. Loved it.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Traditionally, as part of the analysis associated with preparing and approving the annual budget, there is a review of the village's water and sewer utility rates. Prior to last year, the village utilized water purchased as the denominator for calculating rates. Beginning last year, the village changed its methodology and considered recovering a portion of operating utility costs, including water loss, bad debts, and capital infrastructure, or reinvesting into the water system. Each option is broken out in the memo, separated by category: water, sewer, sanitary, and storm. You will find attached to my memo in the board packet the rate tables of all options calculated with this methodology. These options include for water rates to remain unchanged, to increase to cover water supply increase only, to increase to cover water supply and operating only, to increase to cover water supply, operations, and bad debts, and to increase to cover operations and fund capital reinvestments. The option to remain unchanged or pass through the water supply increase only, which is option A, are the least complex discussions, as the board opted to elect option C, which is to increase to cover water supply, operations, and bad debts. In the previous year, there was an overall increase of $2.46 across water and sewer utilities. The fiscal year 24 financial statements, the fiscal year 25 mid-year analysis, and the fiscal year 26 budget preparation have shown the water and sewer fund is reaching self-sustainability levels and growing a healthy fund balance. The increase in the water rates in the previous year, along with valiant efforts from the board to update the large and small meters and the infrastructure over the last decade, all contribute to the growing fund balance of the water sewer fund. With this good news, and with the recent completion of the small water meter replacement project, my recommendation is option A, which solely includes a pass-through of the increase being mandated by the Homewood contract in accordance with the village's contract to purchase water. The cost increase are beyond the village's controls and are subject to the contract, which was a 2.9 increase this year. A second reason for my recommendation of option A is the new meter project. The newer technology in the new meters accounts for the low flow usage. This improvement will capture some of the unbilled usage. Letting a year pass to see how the system performs is reasonable. The projected and budgeted surplus does not create an immediate need to include cost recovery measures in the rate. With the consideration of option A, the rates would increase by 32 cents per 1,000 gallons. My recommendation for sanitary sewer surcharge fee and the storm sewer fees to remain unchanged this year, and to consider a change next budget cycle after a year of data collection from the new meters. I understand my recommendation is a deviation from the option recommended in previous year using the new methodology, but the deviation makes sense with the completion of this small meter replacement project. I do recommend we allow time to pass to do a full analysis and see if the new equipment is solving some of the water loss issues and can fund this operating utility cost without relying solely on water rate increases. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Typically, what we've done in the past with the option C makes the most sense to me, but I think because of the jump that we had last year, and because the balance is building, we're in a much better place now than we were a year ago. Bad debt is relatively stable, and hopefully the pump to bill ratio is going to continue to climb to help offset those other areas that we would normally increase. I think your recommendation makes complete sense. So thank you so much for going through that, taking a fresh look at this and presenting it. I'll start with questions from Trustee Wachtel.
No questions.
Which option would you prefer?
Oh, I'm sorry. A.
Sounds good, thank you. Trustee Michaels.
I did have some questions, and I doubted your methodology. I just, after coming off of so many years where it wasn't a healthy balance, and then to pause, kind of bothered me, but I'll give you a year. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think maybe we do need to pause and see where we're at. We have to, our increase is great because of the, our deal that we made with Homewood and Chicago Heights and Ammon. So let's see what we come up with. It'll be a good way to get some knowledge about the system.
And the finance department is tracking this analysis monthly
Good.
with the water, with the new meters. We're not seeing a tremendous change right now, but I think once these summer months start coming, we'll really see the meters start capturing.
But I mean, with the whole goal is to have that healthy balance here so that we can, maintain the system.
Correct, yep.
That's the goal, not coming out of capital someplace else.
Right.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Steve Mustafa.
So in all these pages, I'll tell you the thing I like the best. The word valiant. The increase in the water rates in the prior year, along with valiant efforts from the board, in other words, choosing option C. Okay. I wanted option D. I thought, go ahead, bite the bullet, go for reinvestment from the beginning, and then you could back off. But it's worked out fine, I think. So please tell me, I consider you hopefully conservative and optimistic.
Yep.
Can you tell me any impact of water main breaks or things that are beyond our control due to our infrastructure?
Well, I can report that our water main breaks are pretty much average this year, no different than previous years. From January 1st till now, we're about 18 breaks. We average around 35 to 40 a year, so we're on par with our average. And most of our breaks are over the winter months, so it hasn't been a huge number this year yet, so I don't see that being anything different than previous years.
Okay. It almost seems unfair when I ask it, you can't really determine where a break's going to occur in advance. Like there's no sounding that you can do and you get an old pipe sound or something.
There is some technology. I mean, we do leak detection and so on to find leaks. But yeah, basically it's, we don't do any preemptive study work or anything, scan pipelines like they do on natural gas or oil pipelines that they do. There is that technology out there. It's very expensive. Nobody does it really in the water industry too much other than large transmission mains, and we don't have any of those. But yeah.
Okay, then is there any, and this might be a stretch also, we've been doing regular work to repair streets and storm sewers, etc. Is there any, can we associate a break with a recent repair that the equipment, vibrations, there's a crack we didn't know and then we get a break 2, 3, 4 months down the road?
Yeah, that does happen a lot with street work from the vibratory rollers that compact asphalt and stone. We do break water mains that way, unfortunately, with the road work and stuff. And we have experienced that. We had that on Brumley a little bit when we reconstructed that last summer.
Okay. All right, and then I hope this is a short question, Ann. So you've got this chart.
Yep.
But I can't match any of the numbers on this chart to, okay, help me.
Yes, so building this chart, I have about 7 or 8 different tabs in an Excel spreadsheet that builds this chart.
Okay.
What these numbers are based off of, we have actuals from 23, 24, we have the projections from 25 budget in there, and then we have what were the preliminary budget numbers for 26 that kind of compromise this.
So just tell me what I should take away from
Sure. For example, so you'll see option B, or even option B, C, and D. You'll see from the current rate to the proposed rate, you'll see that there's a pretty large jump in the sewer number. If you remember from a previous budget, we were talking about this $450,000 new expense in our sewage collection. So you'll see numbers that we're talking about in the budget are direct correlations of how these sewer rates and water rates will be computed.
Because I was looking for the 2.9%.
Yes, okay, so if you look at option A, that second table,
yeah,
you'll see that percentage change. That's where you'll see that 2.9%
It says
across water and sewer.
It says 1.9.
And then plus that 1% below it.
All I have to do is add, right? Thank you. Okay, I'm fine, no more questions.
Trustee Bradley Scott.
Thank you for your robust explanations of how you broke down the suggested option. Looking at number 1, remain unchanged, and I did not bring my budget packet from the prior meeting, but I recall a $3.3 million line item, if my memory serves me correctly, in the collection that we've done for these new water meters. It looks like we are getting much better with it. Is there any opportunity, knowing that we have the 2.9% pass-through from Homewood, is there any opportunity where we don't increase it since our fund balance appears to be pretty healthy in terms of looking to see what that will do? And if you've identified that option.
Yeah, I mean, we can remain unchanged. What that would do is our water purchase number would probably exceed our water build or sales. Usually it's about either equal right now or our water sales are a little more. But if we don't change that water rate, it would probably be closer to a wash. If that makes sense.
Sure. So a wash sometimes is good, right?
Right.
So if we are able to pass along that savings to the residents for this 1 year, obviously it's a year-by-year, situation-by-situation analysis that we look at it next year and the board looks at it next year and sees exactly where it is, or at a different time. It doesn't have to be static, right? If we decide that that's not working, then we change it at a different time.
Sure, I mean, that's definitely a board decision. I would just say that I think Homewood will always be increasing our cost of purchase. So it's 2.9% this year. It is based off of CPI. This year it was based December to December. They did their analysis. So it would probably increase another 3% at least next year. So you just have to be aware that then we would be at a 6% increase if we did change, but that's a board decision.
Only if there's a loss in that fund balance. At this moment, it seems pretty healthy, right? So
correct, it's building, yes.
So if we were to pass that on to the residents.
Well, the increase that I'm recommending is a contractual increase with Homewood. So that will
understood.
Yeah.
Understood that this is Homewood. We're not raising rates because we wanted to raise rates.
Right.
We're raising it because Homewood increased their costs.
Correct.
So is it an opportunity, and it may not be, is it an opportunity to save residents where, since our fund balance is pretty healthy today?
Good, but it's at the expense of other projects, right? So we have other capital projects that need to happen, and the point of building that fund balance is so that we can afford to do that from that fund rather than from the general fund, which is something that we've done in the past, which is not a great way to do it. So we want that fund to continue to build so that we can pay for maintenance from the fund.
Sure, understand that. Just looking at different opportunities, we are hearing a lot from residents in terms of how everything is going up. This is not our expense, but if we're able to pass along money that we have made up because we are billing more appropriately, it seems like that would be an opportunity to just pass it along to the residents. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
Yeah, thank you again, as always, for a very robust report. It's very cool to see how much work you put into the analysis of this. So I would love to leave things unchanged, but I also think there's a lot of wisdom in saying, hey, let's finish out this full year and see where things are at, because I know in the past when we did some of the initial water line replacements, things jumped quick and then they started coming down again. So I think there's some wisdom in getting a full year under this. I would love to leave it unchanged. I would love to lower rates if we could, which I know is probably never going to happen. But I do think that the pass-through probably is the responsible one. What is the potential risk of going with, let's just say, A compared to B? Financially, what kind of potential loss or lack of fund balance adding could happen for from that. And if it's something you don't have now, you can email me.
Sure. So you mean, are you talking
So
remain unchanged,
if we go with A,
which
instead
is just Homewood?
yeah,
Okay.
which is what you've suggested, as opposed to going just that next stage up to B. I'm just trying to get an understanding of what kind of impact we're actually realizing by going with A instead of B.
I mean, so if we go with B, I think there would be more of a, I would predict that there's gonna be more of a fund balance. It'd be a healthier fund balance. One thing to note is that we do currently transfer money, to the capital fund for things for the water and sewer. I mean, maybe eventually we wouldn't have to do that anymore. There's just certain things that we do for our utility funds that still help sustain it, and the goal would be to have them completely self-sustainable.
And so with going with option A, as opposed to C, which we normally did, it's just, let's see how things pan out and see if the increases that we're seeing in the billing of the actual water usage continues to go up, to see if we can stay healthy that way and not have to raise.
Correct.
So we may sit here next year and be like, yeah, we gotta go
we
back
should
to option
raise,
C.
right, correct.
All right. Okay, that's all I have, thank you. So option A.
Thank you. Trustee Driscoll.
Ann, thanks for the presentation. Your report is fantastic. I think your reasoning and logic is completely sound. It's a great strategy. I don't think we should have to hit the residents, twice in 2 years. Let's see how things pan out over the next year, and then have the data from the new meter. So I agree with your analysis. Option A.
Thank you so much. Did you have something else, Trustee Mustafa?
Just a question, and it just occurred to me as you were talking. A is, let's see, because I think there's a good chance that we'll be okay. If we did B, can we return the money to the residents if we feel that there's, the fund balance is higher than appropriate?
I think we can, but that would just be very heavy lifting.
Sure, sorry.
It would be a very heavy lift.
Yeah, I mean, I've had these conversations with places before. There's a few things that, I guess theoretically, maybe if it was in your code, you could do something, but under pursuant to kind of Dylan's rule, I think it's something that's probably not allowable. I think the bigger part is how you would figure out how you would do it. A township that's been in the news a lot, years ago, they had someone who was doing it, but we really knew that they were not, I don't represent the township, so it didn't matter to me as much, but us in the municipal world are like, well, how are they doing this kind of rebate to people that's not allowed? So, no one's going to complain, oh, I'm getting a check for $20, but, theoretically, from the purely legality standpoint, like there's no provision that I'm aware of in the municipal code that would allow you to do it under what's called Dylan's rule, which is providing that you have to kind of only do those things that you're authorized to do by law. So I don't even know how you would come up with the figure. That would be, thank God I'm a lawyer and not a finance person, so I would, that would be a real, be really interesting to see how you came up with that anyway.
And I think what we have to remember is there is a long list of water projects that we do have, and so if we did go with option B and we did see an increase in fund balance, that fund balance could be very easily dedicated to this list of projects. So we just have to, just be aware of all of the future things that we would like to do as a board.
Now, we remember 10 years ago, we only replaced the worst 6% of our system, and that was 10 years ago. So I think the comment was made earlier that we need to be in a place where we are putting monies away to be able to invest back into the system, and that we're doing those with water and sewer revenues and not with general fund balance. So if you're thinking of, my suggestion would be if the board wanted to just do either nothing or option A, that again, this is all your policy, whatever that direction is, if we're going to be monitoring the budget and the cash flow throughout the year as we typically do. Certainly if we needed to have another discussion at the time of the mid-year analysis, that would be an appropriate time to have that discussion, to say that, we should have called it differently back in April, and we would like the board to reconsider option B or option C.
Can I just say one thing? So over the past 30 years, Jen, you haven't been here all the time, but that's all we've been doing. We're a 100-year-old village. Our infrastructure is shot, basically. Over the past 30 years, we've spent a lot of money on sewers, storm sewers and sanitary sewers. We were fortunate because lining of sewers came into fashion, and we were able to do a lot of work through IPEA loans, low interest loans. And we haven't, like Bridget said, we haven't even touched the water system yet. So and there's except for that in the back of the yard truck, so there's probably no amount of fund balance that would make John feel happy right now for the water, because we have a great deal. It's an understatement to say that we have many projects. We have a 100-year-old infrastructure, and we have probably millions of dollars worth of projects out there waiting for us.
And you're going to hear me talk about it with the finance and facilities plan discussion, but when we get into lead line service replacement, we're going to be back having that conversation of moving water main to the front.
Right.
Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to bring a new service line to a backyard main. That's all additional main that should be, out in the public right of way and not in the backyards. So there is a lot of work to be done.
But it's not like we're running a business in the sense that, we're going to do this and we'll have this much profit this year. We don't profit. We just have money to keep the old machine running, and that's it. And when we don't plan and save, then we end up getting on the national news for water problems. So
are you building a case that we should not choose option A?
No, I initially agreed. I said I didn't really agree with option A, but I'm willing to give Ann the 1 year leeway to see what we can come up with. I would like to know. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for the great presentation. It sounds like a majority of the board would like to go with option A. Sure. So if you could prepare an ordinance for us to vote on at the next meeting, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is a discussion on the fiscal year 26 finance and facilities plan. Just a reminder, this is the third of 4 discussions. We started our budget discussions at the beginning of March. And we will vote on the final budget at our next meeting on April 21st. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, this is probably my favorite discussion on the budget all year long, because this is talking about all of the big projects that the village has happening, not only this year, but for the next 3 years. And the finance and facilities plan you can find in the back of our budget in the appendix section of our budget. It is comprised of a narrative called the capital program, as well as several spreadsheets behind it that take different fund balances that are available in each of the major funds, and then allocates or sets them aside for planning and projects that are capital in nature. So not every fund has a set aside, not every fund has either the need for it or the fund balance available for it. We have put together a draft of this year's capital program. If you've never read it, I encourage you to take the time to do so. This document is very historical in nature. It has over 30 years of information with respect to the investment that this board and previous boards have put into infrastructure and projects in the village, and it is quite impressive. Following that are several spreadsheets outlining the general fund, water sewer fund, storm fund, sanitary rehab fund, and if available, a TIP fund. And I will note that an error was made in the packet printing, and we accidentally attached a TIP fund balance from 2019. So the new TIP fund has no fund balance available to be able to allocate at this time. And so that document obviously will not be included in the final publication of the budget. So as I mentioned, the plan identifies for the next 3 years. It even goes beyond that and identifies projects that we know that the village has to do, as we were just talking about a few minutes ago, but they don't come up within the next 3 years, or we have not identified financing. And those are found at the end of the capital plan. It's a very long list, and you can, I think it's a good resource document for both the board, staff, and public to be able to see the breadth of projects that are needed to be completed in the village. As it was mentioned just a few minutes ago, this is all based on the save and spend philosophy. This village has done a lot of its capital improvements with very little debt over the years. So we try to complete these projects with cash on hand. We do consider alternative financing, whether that be bonds or debt, or even the low-interest IEPA loans. But we have been very conservative in our financing of projects over the years. So I'm going to jump right into it and talk about what we have identified for the next 3 years. That's fiscal years 26 through 28. And I'm going to start with water, since we were just on that topic. So as you know, we have been planning for and have started to embark on several water distribution improvements. Notably, starting in fiscal year 25, we're in the the engineering process of identifying a new SCADA system, which is essentially the automated and computer control system of our water distribution system. And John and his team have been working with our engineers and his staff to identify and upgrade to that system. That project has started in 25 and will be completed in 26. Following that, we're going to be looking to make several pump station improvements to the Sterling Avenue pump station. That is going to allow us to take down the Sterling Avenue water tower in the following year, which is undersized and not compliant with IEPA standards. It's our oldest tower in the village, and we're better off making these pump station improvements and some other improvements to the Vollmer Road Station than to try to upgrade and make compliant that undersized tower over on Sterling. So we've identified that the Sterling Avenue pump station improvements and the demolition of that tower we're anticipating being completed through an IEPA low-interest loan in fiscal year 27. And I believe John has already started some of that work, that process, to be able to make that loan application. And then finally, in fiscal year 28, we'd be looking to make the Vollmer Road pump station improvements. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have about 400, we've estimated about 400 water service lines, residential water service lines that need to be replaced through the lead line replacement program. We had a predictive study done in 2020, which estimated about 400. And as we've been going to make our water meter replacements and enter people's homes, we've been able to actually gather better data, and we know that number to be close to accurate. We have probably about 30 services that still need to be further identified. We need to start this program in fiscal year 27. We're hoping to be able to complete about 100 a year and have it done in 4 years. that should say 4 years, or a minimum of 28 per year over a course of 15 years. We're very hopeful that we'll be able to either receive some grant funding for this work. We're actively pursuing that right now, both federal and state grant funding, or an IEPA low interest loan. In total, that work is anticipated to cost approximately, I think, a little over $2 million.
$4.5 million for the whole, all 400, yes.
Thank you, John. So jumping over to the Flossmoor Road viaduct improvements, and we spent a long time talking about them here this evening, so I don't know that I need to go into great detail, but essentially phases 3 through 5 are going to be completed by the end of fiscal year 26. And I've gone ahead and identified the different funding sources that were going to help support the rest of those phases, as well as the fact, as John mentioned earlier, the different grant programs that we're continuing to pursue. I put this slide back in here. You've seen this a few times now at this point, but I think the pictorial of the work and how it's broken down into phases is always very helpful. And if there are any questions, again, we spent a long time talking about it already this evening. We can certainly address any additional questions that you have on it. So, coming out, the second part of the 2021 GO bond fund is the street improvements. And a couple of years ago, we completed one phase of street and sidewalk improvements at a cost of a little over $2 million. And pending the final cost of the viaduct improvements, we plan to do a second phase. That second phase cost is still to be determined. How much that we'll be able to set aside. The preparation of the fiscal year 26 budget shows that bond fund having a fund balance, a budgeted fund balance of $329,000. But additional grants for the viaduct are going to be able to help us free up bond monies to be able to put toward an additional street rehabilitation. Another project that came out of the bond fund is the Brumley Drive reconstruction, which was completed over fiscal years 24 and 25 at a total cost of about $964,000. And don't forget that we have our annual MFT fund set aside $500,000 for street resurfacing each year. And with the new casino money, we've also put an $80,000 allocation in the general fund towards streets so that we could show that we were using casino revenue to help support capital improvements as required. So some other projects that are coming up over the next few years include the Central Business District pedestrian and streetscape improvements. That's at an estimated cost of about $1.9 million. As you know, we received an ITEP grant for construction for about $1.1 million. And we're fortunate to have received another Invest in Cook grant for phase 2 for our additional engineering that was completed. So we've been really fortunate to be able to have a lot of this work completed with grant funds. We're anticipating that construction could start as early as May. I know IDOT is in the process of awarding the grant, and kind of similar to the Brookwood Bridge project, the award of the grant and the contract is going to be held with IDOT. So a large portion of those expenses won't be running through the village's budget. So we're kind of waiting for IDOT at this point. Just this month, they're going to be awarding that construction, and then we'll participate in a meeting with them to establish the construction schedule. We'll host an open house for the downtown businesses and anyone who's interested in learning more about the project, and we'll have a better idea of timeline, access, and try to address all of the issues that come with construction in a very congested area. Dartmouth Pedestrian Bridge and Stream Bank Stabilization Project. This project has been identified through the Finance and Facilities Plan for a number of years, and we've worked really hard to try to put together grants that would do two things. One, stabilize the stream bank, which is eroding, and we've been really fortunate this year to receive an IEPA 319 grant to help offset 60% of those costs. But the big portion of the work of the budget is associated with the bridge structure itself, and unfortunately we have not been able to identify a grant to help offset that. We're going to continue to try one last attempt through the state capital bill again this year, but we're at a point where if we don't act on this grant and start moving this project forward, we're going to risk not receiving that IEPA 319 grant. So that is a decision point for the board of whether you want to go ahead and assume those costs, because we'll be looking at a majority of those costs coming out of fund balance to be able to support that work, or forego the grant and just put the project on hold. We could be at a point at some point where the bridge is not safe and we have to close it. That is a very real possibility. But we also have this great grant in hand to help us with at least a little over $100,000 of the project. We do have it factored into the set-asides for us to be able to assume that project next fiscal year. Another project on the facility side is with respect to a new salt storage bin down at Public Works. We're estimating that to cost a couple $100,000. That was to be completed in fiscal year 25, but really just due to workload, that's something that's being carried over to 26. We also have several rear yard drainage improvement projects coming out of the storm sewer fund. As you know, the board has approved a residential drainage improvement policy that addresses how the village handles when people come forward, residents come forward and say that they have flooding that occurs on their property, and it may not just be relative to their property, what we'll call like more of a sub-regional impact of a few different households or a small area, and we're able to evaluate those projects, evaluate the damage that's occurring, whether it's nuisance flooding or whether it's actually impacting property and threatening property. We give those projects a rating score. Those ratings are actually published on our website, so we communicate back to the public how all those projects stack up. And then we look for funding to be able to address them. We have everything on there from the Flossmoor Road Viaduct down to very small nuisance flooding projects. One of our biggest projects that still has yet to find funding is Latimer. We have very bad flooding that can occur on Latimer and impact residents on that street. We are pursuing a FEMA grant.
Already have. It's the AMP was in last September.
A FEMA grant to try to pay for that project, but that's estimated at over $1 million. These projects here have higher ratings in that rating analysis. They actually impact property and threaten property versus nuisance, and we have the fund balance available to be able to cover them, and that's for we usually associate one address with the property. It's usually whoever's made the request for us to evaluate it. So this is a project around 1344 Brassey, 1413 Heather Hill Crescent, and 900 Western Avenue. And again, these are all being funded through the storm sewer fund, which is why in part we're collecting the storm sewer fee to be able to support not only our operating expenses associated with storm sewer, but also to be able to address some of these smaller scale projects. And then finally, we have Central Drive lot resurfacing scheduled for fiscal year 27. And I'll just say that the health of the municipal parking lot fund is of grave concern, because obviously commuters everywhere are working from home as opposed to commuting. And so the revenue to be able to help sustain these funds and sustain the maintenance costs associated with our parking lots is a concern moving forward. We're seeing our fund balance continue to dwindle. One thing that we've talked about is staff moving forward into next year is utilizing some of our professional services money to engage with a planning firm to take a look at our commuter lots and see how much commuter lot spacing we really need moving forward in this new era. I wouldn't rush to put those parking lots on the market for sale because you'll never get them back. But I do think long term, this is an issue not only for Flossmoor, but everywhere really, as we take a look at the way that our workforce is now doing a lot more working from home. So with that, I will open it up for any questions or comments. The plan will be, following tonight's discussion, the plan documents will be finalized and put into the final budget that will be presented to the board at the April 21st meeting.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. Are you looking for the board to make a comment on Dartmouth bridge replacement tonight, or do you want to wait and see if we get that grant?
I would recommend waiting to see. I mean, we have it factored in. Worst case scenario, we don't receive it, that we can be able to pull fund balance to be able to offset the rest of the costs of the project and get it done. Obviously, there'll be another opportunity to talk about it again as a board and make that decision. So my recommendation would be just, leave it in the plan, but certainly that's your discretion.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that bridge is in extremely poor shape. Yeah. All right. I'll start with questions or comments from Trustee Mitros.
The Dartmouth Bridge, are they, the grant we have for the stabilization of the banks, is that tied into the redoing of the bridge, or can we do the stabilization without the bridge?
Great question. I've asked that same question. Could we phase it? And John and I have talked about that a little bit. Essentially, the bridge structure needs to come out to be able to do the
Stabilization underneath the bridge, yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we could do it as two separate projects. In that scenario, we may have to remove the old bridge and not have a bridge until it gets replaced in the future, just so they can do the stabilization around that bend. Similar to the stabilization work we did with the MWD years ago. We could do that as a phase project and come back and do the bridge at a later date, but then we would be restoring that area twice. Right. Which is okay, but if we know we're going to do it in a year or so, we're trying to time it so we go on at one time, one contract, cost savings, hopefully some cost savings realization by scale of the size of the project, right? So
in the bridge renewal, they're talking about just getting rid of the whole bridge and putting a new one there. Mm-hmm. It's not just a matter of could we replace the boards over the old and make do for a while?
No, we're going to put new abutments further back in a protected area in a single span, probably steel truss.
Gotcha.
A single span that gets brought in set with a crane. Yeah.
Okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mustafa.
Trustee Mitros asked my question. Good job, Jim. Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, I'll say.
May I ask about my email that I sent you?
Sure.
Okay, I brought copies. Professor?
Sure.
Okay, thank you for allowing time for this. Just wanted to know what the board thinks, what the village manager and the mayor thinks. On page 112, we have a very long, to me, a daunting list of projects that are not scheduled. And according to the packet, they would be 3 years, or if priorities or money emerged from somewhere, that we would tackle them. So I looked at these, and just in my head, I just see categories. So you'll see in the email that I have lumped best I can into categories. Now I realize that some of the projects are a little different one from the other, but I've lead water service line, drainage improvement, 2 types, lot resurfacing, sewer rehabilitation. You see these categories. There's a total, Attorney, you did get one, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. There's $15,110,640 worth of projects that are unplanned. There are 7 projects for residences, flooding, that affects these particular addresses. And those projects total $175,740. Those projects are only 1.16% of the total. And because of the situation we're in, without being able to address everything, we're pushing out for 3 years or longer 1.16% of projects. And my thought was, can we go ahead and address these residences for these reasons? We would eliminate the nuisance and costly flooding for these addresses. We would wipe 7 projects off the list, eliminate additional costs going forward, because if we wait 3 or more years, it's possibly going to get a lot worse. And we'd help maintain home values for these properties, which benefits Flossmoor overall. And it's an amount of money that could be manageable. So I just wanted your thoughts on this idea. John, would you like?
I saw it.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. The plan, the staff is presenting a plan that ultimately the village board is deciding on. So you're deciding where to allocate the monies and to what. Now, I understand your thought process on the categories and the percentage and all of that, but keep in mind that each of these projects come from different funds. So the storm sewer fund is supporting storm sewer projects. The board has approved a policy on how you're going to rate those projects and how you're going to address them. That rating system puts a weight on those projects that are going to impact primary structures on properties, houses, and the amount of damage that the flooding is doing. So our higher rated projects are in a greater need than the smaller rated or lower rated projects. And really, once you get below a score of about 50, you're looking at more of nuisance flooding than you are structural damage flooding.
All of these lower than 50, the ones that are left on this list, this $175,000 list? Are they all nuisance flooding?
John, do you want to opine on that? Because you've done the ratings yourself, and John's a certified stormwater manager, so he brings some credentials to this process.
So if you go to page 105 in the board packet, that'll be there's a section here for the residential drainage improvement program. There's a list of all the projects that are currently on the list, and this is all on the website as well for anybody who wants to go look at it. But basically, as presented in the budget, basically everything with a score of 60 or higher would be getting covered, other than the higher cost projects like the Heather Road drainage improvement, which is $1 million project, or the Springfield Avenue project, which is probably going to be at least $500,000 or more. But the rest of those projects, the smaller ones, are all 55 or lower, so that helps kind of explain it.
And I would say that there's both a science and an art to this, because when you're looking at the storm sewer fund, we're also trying to make sure that we're not running fund balance down to a level that we're not comfortable with. So with these 3 projects that we've identified putting in, we're at a spot where we've left about $200,000 in fund balance. Now, you know, if the board wants to run that down to $100,000, you certainly could. I would just caution you that you don't want to be in a spot where you're going to risk overspending.
Yes, I did look at the ratings, and then I also looked at the dollar amount. Even a couple of them, even though the ratings are almost high enough. For example, there's one with a score of 55, but it's only $10,000. So I understand the rating, and I was so excited when you came up with this method of doing it, because that's the way my brain works. But I was just putting this together just as a thought. They're going to cost more in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So just to see what the board thought. I know we have to make an exception to the way we've done fund balance. We'd have to make an exception to say where the money comes from. So I'm just presenting it as a possibility. 7 projects, 1.16% of the total. Yes, the total comes from different pots of money. Throwing it out as a possibility, because when we look at a long list, they're not all of equal weight. They're not all of equal impact to our infrastructure. What do other board members think?
Is there something that you would cut to?
Well, that would have to be part of the discussion. Sometimes we, in life, in being a trustee, you say, okay, these are the rules, and that's important because we have that responsibility, our fiduciary responsibility to residents. But then again, if we did consider a way to do these 7 projects, could it be a reasonable exception? So I'm just throwing it out.
I'm sorry?
You know, the adage about collecting low-hanging fruit. So you go around with, you know, you solve 10 little easy projects, but we're ignoring long-term goals that can cause long-term stagnation for the village. That's the only thing. So, you know, we could run around and check off these ones. I'm part of it. I had to turn it off. Sorry. So it's not necessarily the best strategy, especially if it upsets the apple cart in our kind of defined project scheme for the backyard projects. That's my only thing. And some of these projects are on there, you say it's 15 million, but I know like the water tower, that's been on there for at least over a decade. It was something that you can push off, you know, easily another year, until finally the right amount of grants meet the project and so forth. So it's always a balancing act. But I just would say, yeah, we could run around and fix everybody's backyard this year, but when we throw out our entire rating system for all the backyard projects.
Well, it's kind of a, I hear what you're saying. We're not talking about running around doing everything because those other things aren't on the list yet.
I'll also point out there's also the workload component. So, you know, 7 rear yard drainage improvement projects over 1 to 3 years. I don't know how practical that is from a workload standpoint. In addition to, we have 3 more phases of the Flossmoor Road Viaduct. We have the Central Business District project that's going to be happening, lead line services that we have to start in fiscal year 27. We're already carrying a hefty workload. So there is that component. While the dollar amount may be smaller, there's still the workload component.
I was gonna say the variable not on here is our staff. They only have a certain amount of time. And the way that I look at this, it's their job to get these big jobs done. I mean, that's why we have an engineer sitting back there. There's no stall on these. I mean, and I look at these smaller jobs, and the gentleman at 1344 sent me a picture of his backyard. There were mallards swimming in the backyard. I sent it on to John, but I mean, those are smaller, and they're on the list, and we're going to take care of them. But there's only so much we can do in 1 year, and we have to get the big jobs done. So it's like having a log cabin where you have to chink between the logs, and those are what the smaller jobs are for. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. We must move on with these bigger projects because that's what they get paid to do. But we also have to, we just can't stop them and have them do all small projects. And they have to do it time permitting and based on the man hours that they have to do it. So
I have one question along those lines. These 3 addresses are single projects in as much as they are the source of a drainage problem in other homes. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a small project. There are several homes on each of these addresses that a fix takes care of. Is that safe to assume that?
Yeah, John, do you recall off the top of your head with each of them how big the areas are?
Yeah, so 1344 Brassy, there's 4 homes there that flood pretty bad in the backyard. One of the homes actually gets water up to the windowsill, almost comes in the house. So that's a structure flooding issue. 1413 Heather Hill Crescent is a single home that is lower than the homes all around it and has no positive gravity outfall, and water goes into their basement through sliding glass doors in the back. There's no positive drainage away. Only way to fix that one is a storm sewer out too. So probably Scott Crescent to the existing storm sewer out there where it all goes to anyways. And then 900 Western Avenue is a single home that has, it sits in a hole out off of, I don't know, but just north of the Western Avenue School. On the west side of Western.
And the folks on Heather Hill, they're the ones that are having the mold issue?
Yes, yeah, that's it.
And that's indicated by the rating, because those are all 80, 95. So we understand that those are at the top of the list. I'm not ignoring the rating system. Again, I like the rating system.
So, like, a couple things. Are you done? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, to me, we have a plan in place and a system that we discussed, and I think that system is sensitive to the manpower issue that we have. Because even when you say over 1 to 3 years, really it's 6 months to 18 months, because you can only do these projects and this flooding through the warm months. So everything is kind of compiled down. So when you look at the lift that it would be to take care of all of those, in addition to the other projects that Public Works has, it's a lot. I mean, they're grinding sidewalks, and there's tons of stuff that has to happen in those summer months. So I think if the opportunity comes up where we can throw one in there, we're like, hey, we've got some low-hanging fruit here, and we're getting toward the end of the season, and John says, hey, this will take a week, we can throw this in there, and he brings it to us, and we can kind of do it that way, kind of opportunistically. I just don't think abandoning the plan that we have in place and possibly throwing other things into chaos isn't the right word, but negatively impacting other projects that we have. I just don't know that that's the way to do it.
So there's I did not imply that we would do that. That would not make sense. But
that was the nature of doing it.
No, I didn't. I did not imply that we would drop anything. Okay, but what's not written is instead of waiting for 3 years to even think about doing these, because that's what the document says. These would be minimum 3 years out. Can we look at them every year and reassess?
Oh, we do. The document isn't meant to say we won't do it for 3 years at all. We try to get to them in 3 years if possible, if not sooner. Yeah, basically, we presented 3 thinking this would be a good workload based on everything else we have going on and not also drawing down the storm sewer fund budget or the fund balance too much, I mean. That was kind of the 2 things we looked at when determining 3 would be a good number to probably tackle this year. And then if they go well, yeah, and then we get through them and we still have time, we could always come back for 1 or 2 more.
That's great, because I took it.
It's an idea, it's definitely something we look at every year now.
That's great, I took it literally. It says 3 years.
Yeah, the plan's reviewed every year as part of the budget process. This is always our 3rd discussion item with respect to approving the budget. So the board will have an opportunity next year at this time to evaluate the projects that are presented.
And I think till just recently, I think maybe it was John's innovation, this, that we would go ahead and do this, start, dealing with homeowners. Because there are a lot of municipalities that won't. They'll just say, it's your problem, deal with it. So when John suggested, I'm proud of the fact that we will listen to homeowners and take care of issues for them.
We're more responsible than that, Jim.
Oh, I know. We do a good job. And I think John was the one that implemented this, so kudos to John.
Yeah, and I think this is similar to how we handle a lot of other situations as well. I mean, like with our streets, we use the PACER system, so we rate it. And I would love to go fix everybody's streets, but we have to do it in order of the biggest impact and the worst. Where we can't really do the snowball effect, where we take care of the little ones and then apply. It's not like a regular budget. And even with the spreadsheet that you kind of gave us, really the residential addresses, Latimer Lane affects anywhere from 7 to 10 houses, because the other thing that you don't see with Latimer Lane is because of the water as it floods, it comes up, it actually goes into a municipal sewer and backs up into about 5 or 6 basements. So,
but that's why it's rated 100.
Right, no, but in here you said there's only $175,000 worth of residential issues.
No, it's just a list of the ones that are 3 years, Gary. Don't go too far with this. It's the ones in the list that are 3 years or more and they're not planned yet. It's not the ones that we're gonna do, okay? It's just on page 112. Okay, just those.
Yeah, to me, I think sticking with the plan that we have in place is the right way to go.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, Trustee Musat?
No.
Trustee Bridget Scott?
Given that we are still in our winter months, perhaps we haven't got into the street resurfacing project and what that looks like for the upcoming year. I know we have identified a dollar amount, but do we have the number of streets to be resurfaced in mileage?
Yeah, John's working on that right now.
Yeah, I don't have the exact footage right now in front of us, how many miles. It's probably going to be around 1.25 miles probably, maybe 1.5 miles, I believe. So it's not much more than that. But we're still got to measure it and figure out exactly what our money will stretch us to, so.
Indeed. And the goal would be to do a much bigger project the year following, once we know how much is left from the bond funds.
Yes, correct.
Keep going after those grants.
And we'll know about the bond funds after we work through phase 5. Correct. Okay. I wanted to go back, Bridget. You mentioned that there was further services needed to be identified for 30 water. What was it, water meter?
Identifying the material in the water service. So these were all visual inspections that Cal City Plumbing was doing. When they went in to go change the meter, they were taking a look at the material from the meter out to the back of the house. Not every one could be identified based on the conditions and where the meter was located. And so we're going to have to do some additional exploratory measures to be able to confirm or to whether those properties should be included in the project or not. John, do you want to further comment?
Yeah, so basically, Public Works is gonna start this effort, late spring here actually, and we have about 30 services that we're gonna hydro excavate a pothole next to the V-box, go down the service pipe and then do an ID outside in the parkway basically, where we're not under somebody's driveway or sidewalk, but in the grass area, then we can backfill the hole, but physically, the EPA is gonna require us to do that, to identify them. And we wanna do that because we wanna know if it needs to be replaced or not, because the last thing we wanna do is put a address on a list for a project to replace the service and dig it up and find out it's copper and there's nothing wrong with it. And we're gonna pay for that, an investigation dig basically by the contractor, where we could have done it before with our hydro excavator, which is putting an 8-inch hole down, 5-6 feet deep to the service and identify it that way. We didn't wanna do that to all 400 that we had the plumbers do in the meter project, because it was much quicker to have them do it inside the house, so hopefully that helps.
I apologize. That sounded like Charlie Brown's womp womp womp. I didn't understand anything you just said. So I guess what my question is, in terms of the 30 meters, are you saying that we tried to replace the meter, but for whatever reason there's something that's not gelling for it to report out properly? Or are you saying that, no?
No, these are actually homes we haven't got into yet. We can't get into because there were vacant properties and stuff. So we were waiting to hopefully try to get into the meter. We haven't got to those because they're not 100% done yet. There's only probably about 30 or so left. So we're going to go and do an investigation outside of Parkway where we can dig without getting access to homes. Because vacant homes we can't get into, and we can't do the meter if nobody's living in the home, because if there's a leak or something, it would be an issue for the bank that may own it, or the property owner may own it, so.
So if it's vacant, do we automatically, if we know it's not, do we cut water supply to it, or water service is still being?
Usually we have them turned off. Most of them probably are turned off if they're vacant, so a lot of times that's requested by the property owner, whether it be a property owner or a bank or something, but we do turn them off, so. And we can't do a meter in that house until it becomes vacated, until it gets moved into again, so.
So in terms of the service, the further service needed, you just mean that it needs to be worked out, generally speaking, not that it's not reporting properly on any.
It just hasn't been completed yet.
Gotcha.
There's nothing wrong with what's been done there. Nothing's been done there. We just haven't had can't get in there so we're gonna go dig up the services with a pothole.
Gotcha.
And idea so we can finish our plan, because then we have to start, come up with a game plan of, we have them all mapped out, and then we can start developing dependent funding becomes available, figure out our plan and see how we want to tackle this. Depending if we can find good funding and we can do them 100 a year for 4 years and knock them all out, that'd be the best. Or we do the state minimum required of 28 a year, which is in our plan. We have submitted to the state already. That's our minimum we have to do, start at 27, and we have 15 years to do all 400.
Understood. Thank you. And then just going back to the project, I probably should have started with the drainage improvement projects. Public Works is doing that in-house for those projects?
No, those will be contracted out. These will all be probably directional board, storm sewer pipes, the backyards.
Okay.
It's some of the smaller ones we may do, some of the ditchy ones, possibly that end our Western Avenue we may do in-house because it's going to be an open cut, so we can do with our equipment, our manpower. But those other two, 1344 and 1413, are going to be deep and long directional bore runs. So.
Understood. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Daggett.
I think just a couple questions. So the Sterling Avenue water tower, when that gets taken down, I assume we have an easement on that. What happens to that land? Do we own that land, or is that an easement?
The vacant parcel at the corner there is now owned by us through the no cash bid process. Okay. So we are going to retain ownership through this project because the amount of equipment it will take to take the tower down will eat up that land. Right. And then actually we have an interested buyer in that property. They just unfortunately need to be patient with us as we're kind of completing everything we need to do, and it'll be best that we just retain ownership through taking the tower down.
Okay. And then I think, it's probably not something you have right now, but when you get it, if you had a ballpark for what you think will be improved into the streets and sidewalks budget, like do you have kind of, I know it's a crystal ball question, but do you know about a number that we'll have left in bond fund right now, if everything came through? Or is that just something you can't even really speak to yet?
Well, I'm hoping at least an additional $1 million. I think I'm safe saying that.
I'm not holding it.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I mean, it's a crystal ball at this point.
Okay. Because that's going to directly affect how much of the streets and
Oh,
sidewalks we
absolutely.
do. And if we can get a huge jump, if we're going from 1.25 miles, if we can add 1.5 miles to 2 miles to that, that would be fantastic. Because that jumps that whole system up.
That's why we're not giving up on these grants.
Yeah, no,
Until we
absolutely.
have to.
No, I appreciate that work. I like the discussion about the conversation eventually about maybe reclaiming some of the parking lot land. I could also see that being used as village event space. So I look forward to discussions when that starts happening. But other than that, I got nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Driscoll.
Really, I think we covered everything. I just want to say I keep my fingers crossed when I do my jogging route over the Butterfield Creek Bridge. I always feel a little tentative on that, so at some point we do have to get that done, but so far so good. If I end up going for a swim one day, then we'll know it's not good anymore.
Thank you. Trustee Lofton.
Yeah, the capital program is quite extensive, and we've done a great analysis of all the trouble we have, particularly the water trouble, and it just proves that we have work to do for the greater good, so let's need to continue on and focus where we can.
Thank you. Do you have everything you need?
I think I do. Thank you.
We do not need to go into executive session, so I'll call for other business, starting with Trustee Mustafa.
I have a few things. Is it possible that you could update regarding the LPR cameras? Were they placed on the property of the Edwards and the Leaf family? That was the alternative because we couldn't get approval quickly through Cook County.
Correct. We have three agreements with private property owners to place on their property those 3 LPRs. I'm not sure I personally am not sure what the status of those are.
They signed an MOU allowing that placement.
I don't think we have an update right now, but we'll bring one to either the manager or the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Those cameras I know would be so valuable for our police department, so I was very curious to see if it had progressed. Okay, the other item I wanted to ask about is, are you getting any reports on the, let's see, what are they called? The community integrated living arrangements? A resident approached me. There are 3, as I understand, in Heather Hill. They typically have a pattern of not respecting neighbors. And is there any effort that can be made to keep track of this in a way where residents can have a quality of life and not be subjected to noise, people running into their property causing havoc because they are not from Flossmoor?
Well, maybe we'll start with asking Mr. Bugner to comment on community integrated living arrangements and maybe even Mr. Miller on our legal ability in interacting with them. And then we can talk specifically about the question at hand.
With solo homes, we have to be very careful. We have to treat them just like any other residents. We can't, with the fair housing laws, and Mr. Miller can chime in on that, we have to be very careful with that. I think Springfield lost a case recently, I think last year.
That's right.
Regarding spacing, distance, and prohibiting them, if you will.
Yeah, I would be concerned, quite honestly, about the liability issues. depending on what we were looking at doing. So I would really like to see, coming here for the first time and not seeing any concept. It's hard for me to give a specific statement on it, but Springfield did lose. I would be concerned in regards to the ideal that you're kind of being prohibited.
So I wasn't speaking to doing anything that we're not supposed to do legally. Okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just stating with my general concern with it.
Yes,
But to your point earlier, we treat those occupants as residents. They are residents of the village of Flossmoor.
Okay.
So we don't say that they're not from here because they do live
They
here.
do live here, okay. The complaints I got, and I won't disclose the neighbor that spoke with me until they're willing to just send an email and put their name on it, but their complaints were with the employees, not with people that were, for lack of a better word, permanent residents. These are employees that come and go and may not live there. So if I have more details, I could send you information.
Yeah, and please encourage that resident to contact me directly.
I did. Mm-hmm.
Because over the years, we've had cases of poor facility management. We've had cases where residents who have been placed at a particular home don't have the services that they need and therefore become difficult for the staff to be able to manage, which then kind of spills over into the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been able, and even putting some drain on our fire and police services. So, there are addresses that are what we'll call frequent flyers on 911. Because when the staff runs into trouble and they need help, that's who they call. So, these are challenging cases in respect to those types of problems that we've encountered, but we have been successful over the years in mitigating issues, but it has to be very specific with respect to the management of the facility itself.
Their lobby is also really intense and strong. I mean, no joke strong. And, now there's some bills on the fire side. I think it's 2336 that's going to actually provide like some relief on the lift assist, what we call them. But their lobby is really strong. So we just gotta be careful when you tread on it. I mean, they have no hesitation about taking that fight all the way. So,
No,
I know you're not asking us to do anything illegal.
No, and I did encourage them, and in fact, I said, please send your comments, experiences, your complaints directly to Village Manager Wachtel. So,
And we have referred some complaints back to IDHS in the past.
okay.
And they're the body that governs these facilities.
Okay, so the third thing I had, and Bridget, we've exchanged several emails on this, so this should be somewhat familiar. Just to give context, I looked up the strategic plan. It was almost finished when I joined the board in 2021, so I did not have direct input to most of it. I just was adding things at the final hour. But I was concerned, and I continue to be concerned, that we're not using it as a living document. We're using it as a more of a document that's static. So I looked up the Forest Consulting advice. Now, Forest Consulting is the company that prepared the final version of the strategic plan, and they were the facilitators in its preparation. And I won't read this whole thing because it could be very boring. They talked about how we should review the document and seek any needed changes, which was done already before they published it. But the most important part is that, number 2, adoption and pursuit of a process which helps assure plan implementation and follow through. Their guidance is that the strategic plan implementation is a project, and that we should set up a plan to track ideally using a project management system, and identify key performance indicators for strategic objectives that are suggested in the plan, and that we adopt these for each objective and set a target and use a dashboard to measure. These are their suggestions. They talk about monthly check-ins on plan progress, separate from other meetings. They talk about quarterly plan update meetings to review progress and issues. And this is critical, to adjust implementation as needed. So it's not a static plan that never changes. An annual assessment of plan progress and results should occur, followed by a replanning, which again is not a static process, to reset action steps. So it's a constantly evolving plan. So I also looked up International City County Management Association's guidance. They advise that the annual plan should be used as a tool to create the budget. And we've not reviewed it in advance of this budget cycle, which really concerns me. I hope that going forward, we can have it on the agenda in advance of the budget. And so I've asked of you in more than one email, how does the board assure that the review of this valuable tool, where many hours were invested, how can it be used before the budget process starts? What does the board have to do to assure that happens?
I mean, I think it's always a goal to, sorry,
So I guess my question is, most places do like a strategic plan like every 5 to 10 years. You're doing one every year? Or am I confused?
No.
That's what you said.
Thank you for, no, I said that once you do it, as I read from the Forest Consulting Group, you continue to review it and you reset it. So we did it, and in 2023 on our website, you do see a review. We have no review for 2024 because we haven't reviewed it, and we have not used it as advised as a tool to create the budget for the following year. We've not used it for this budget cycle.
Is there something in the budget that you don't think aligns with the strategic plan specifically?
I can't know. We didn't go through the strategic plan.
You have a copy of the strategic plan,
And
though.
so you're putting it on me that I was to review it to be able to answer this question?
Well, you won't, remember, you kind of came in afterwards. You know, the budget and finance was on the last strategic plan or rated by all the
No, hold
department
on.
heads.
I'm talking about 2025. We're doing a fiscal year 26 budget. We have not reviewed the strategic plan. And it's advised by not only the Forest Consulting Group, who helped us create the plan, but it's advised by the International City County Management Association.
But you can review it anytime you want. We legally, I don't know if you want to address the legally, we legally have to adopt a budget by a certain date.
So you're saying that you reject the advice of the International City County Management Association? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that we have a legal responsibility to get this budget reviewed and approved, and we all have a copy of the strategic plan, and if you want to see how the budget aligns with the strategic plan, you can easily do that.
How does the board assure that we use this critical tool before we start the budget process?
I guess for my purposes, that's up to you guys as board members if you have anything that you want to address whenever you have your, your financial planning meetings to bring those topics up. I don't necessarily agree with that recommendation from that association, quite frankly. Like, I think your budget is a fluid process, and it's sometimes, I consider it somewhat of a swag, which is a scientific wild, so I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, but you didn't say what it really stands for.
Right, I didn't say the A word. I didn't want to swear in public. There's a reason probably that I'm not an elected official, because maybe I do swear too much. But I don't necessarily agree with the idea that, I think you guys as the ones who are making the decision, if you see individual things that you are concerned about in that strategic plan, then you do that. But you guys have, obviously, this is my first meeting here, so maybe I'm missing out, but I thought I heard this was meeting, 3 of 4. So, what I would say is that there are specific things, make sure like going forward, bring it up in meeting one. Hey, are we addressing point A of the strategic plan?
That makes sense, Attorney Miller. I brought up that we needed a review before the budget process started.
But if we go off of all the recommendations from the organizations you recommended, monthly check-ins, like outside of a board meeting, so...
No, this would be with the staff. The staff would do that, the board wouldn't necessarily have to do that.
My thing with this is, we are not Orland Park, we're not Naperville. We don't have enough staff to do all of those recommendations like that. The amount of staff time, when we're stretched as thin as we are right now, we run a skeleton crew. There are people who are wearing numerous hats in here, and to create more for them, to do a monthly review of where we're at with our strategic plan. As I see the strategic plan, that is our mission statement. And we have to know what our mission is, and then everything has to fall underneath that. And I agree with you on that part. So if, as a part of our discussion on the budget at the beginning, as council said, we say, okay, hey, let's do a quick look at this, and hey, make sure everything that we're doing is fitting into this. And then individually, as a trustee, if there's something that I feel like this doesn't fit in with what our mission is, we need to talk about this, and we need to adjust it. I think that's the way to handle it. But to take all the recommendations that to me, the mission is the mission. The budget is something that is worked on throughout the entire year. So
let's take the part that you said prior to...
If I can finish.
Go ahead.
So what I would not want to do is slow down the process that the finance department goes through, so they can monthly go back and say, okay, all this, spreadsheeting that we're doing and all the stuff that goes in, we have to now take 2-3 hours of the day to go through this process when it's in place. And I think it's a document that should direct the way we do things, and it should be considered in what we do. But you get too deep in the weeds in it, and you get too nitpicking on it, and it's just going to slow down the process.
The weeds notwithstanding, we've not reviewed it at all in a year. So if we can come to some middle ground where we at least review it prior to the budget, that would satisfy part of it. These are suggestions from an organization that we have on our website, by the way. The International City County Management Association is on our website as what we follow, okay? And we hired the forest consulting. We don't have to take anybody's recommendation. But when we go a year without looking at the plan that we developed, we can miss something. And so all I'm asking is, how does the board assure that we use the tools we've spent time to develop? I'm not trying to say how long anybody should sit in a meeting. You didn't hear me say that. But if we have a plan and we're not using it, I feel that we're at a disadvantage.
Right, well, you read the strategic plan, just one point. It doesn't, there's no specific budget things in there. It's priorities, infrastructure, communication. There's nothing in there that's going to specifically help us with the budget that you haven't seen in there before.
That's
not the strategic plan.
Well, this is supposed to support our planning document. So we spend money as we have planned.
Do you feel like it doesn't?
I don't know. We didn't review the strategic plan.
Did you review the strategic plan?
Hmm?
Did you review the strategic plan?
So you continue, and the mayor continues to put it back on me. I'm asking the board.
I look at it quarterly.
I'm asking the board, what can we do as a board to assure that we collectively together, not me sitting in my living room or me with my free time, looking at a plan?
But I think if there's something that doesn't align, since you do have the plan and you have reviewed the plan, if there's something that you don't think aligns with our goals or our mission, I think you need to bring those forward.
Which you're doing now, to be fair. But I think if we do that consistently, if we're going through the budget discussion and something comes up in the budget, and it's like, hey, this doesn't fit in with the DEI part of what we're talking about, or this doesn't fit in, then we can bring those up in those moments. So I think, to answer your question, for me personally, how I handle it is, if there's something that I personally feel like doesn't line up with it, I'm going to bring it up, like you are now, in discussion. And I think if we're doing that consistently, that's how to handle it. What I don't want to do is hamstring our staff and put a bunch of things on them that are extra that they have to do when there's not something wrong with it. Like
I still ask the question, we won't hamstring, we won't ask anybody to take 3 hours. How does the board collectively assure
Sure, I just gave you my answer on that.
that our discussions include the strategic plan?
I think Gary made a good point, and the point was that it's a mission statement. It's not a guideline for the budget. We have another thing, it's like a 5-year capital plan.
We haven't reviewed that either.
But we have a 5-year capital plan.
Reviewed it tonight.
And I think that that's more of something that we follow year by year for our budget. And that's budgetarily speaking,
is a consensus,
that's a great thing, because I'm sure a lot of communities don't do that.
Is a consensus that we don't need to review the strategic plan?
You can review it, but I don't think I think it has nothing to do with the budget, basically.
Even though professionals and experts in this say it does have to do with the budget?
I don't know who they are. We're here every night.
The International City County Management Association says use the annual review of the strategic plan as a tool to create the budget for the following year.
There's nothing in that I see the strategic plan would help us devise a budget. Capital plan, I mean, that's something that's really important. And that's we look over the next 5 years always, where are we going, what are we going to do?
So I ask again, is the consensus that we do not have to review the strategic plan prior to the budget?
Can I make a couple of comments? Because Trustee Mustafa and I have had some conversation on this, and I think I'll just share this. The strategic plan is adopted every 4 to 5 years. And as we embark on a new board taking office, that process will start again for adoption in 2026. When we talk about review of the plan, we're tossing around that term pretty freely, and I think with some different interpretation. So over the years, the staff has taken the strategic plan and we have updated the board. We have reported to the board those projects, those accomplishments that have supported our strategic plan, that are in line with the strategic plan, that have been accomplished or are in the process, and we've reported on them. At no point during those discussions has there been any modification to the plan, any adjustment to the plan, any additional strategic plan development sessions or anything of that nature. It's a reporting process. That is what we have done. What I shared with Trustee Mustafa, and those board members, our board will remember, we have been as frequent as quarterly in some of those discussions in many years ago. We have been more semi-annually or annually in recent years. To Trustee Daggett's point, we don't have one staff member who is just, constantly working on a strategic plan report to the village board. We are putting something else on hold to be able to gather that data and report back to you, which we're happy to do. I think there's benefit to it. That said, the budget process is not a zero-based budget or a program budget. The budget moves from the level of service we provide today and budgets for it for tomorrow. And the budget is in line with, and the services that we're providing are in line with the strategic plan. The budget is an annual work plan that supports the strategic plan. I had shared with Trustee Mustafa that we will be reporting on the strategic plan during the month of May as the new board takes seat and as we start to look to work toward, because it can take up to a year to put together a new strategic plan for adoption in 26. The board can certainly set a target for how often you would like staff to return to talk about the strategic plan, but you also can't hamstring us because there's only so much time and resources that we have to be able to accomplish our work. And I think I say that in light of your comment, Trustee Mustafa, about trying to adopt some sort of municipal code ordinance that would bound us to make reports to the board. So I say all that as some background and some context from a staff perspective on the role of the strategic plan, and how the budget plays, and really realistically what we can accomplish.
There seems to be a misunderstanding, and maybe I've contributed to this. I in no way expect that we would do a strategic plan every year. That's unreasonable. That's not what a strategic plan is. Neither do I imply, or neither have I intended to imply, that all review or updates have to be a formal thing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. But what I've experienced on the board is we don't even go back in our discussions and take one of the areas of the strategic plan and say, we're meeting it or we're not. We either have a full-blown presentation, which takes a lot of work, I can only imagine, or we don't talk about it at all. And yes, each of us looks at plans at home. Everybody's dining room table might have prior budgets or whatever you look at to get ready for a board meeting. It doesn't have to be do the plan and never talk about it until you do a full-blown presentation. I am stressing that our plans need to be living documents. That even if we take a piece of it and say, in this regard or in that regard, it needs to be part of our conversation, not just a project. It's supposed to be a tool that we use. It doesn't have to be build a house every time you talk about it. It could be just fix a board on the bridge, and we know we can't do that because the whole thing's falling apart. But that's not where we are. So no, I am not suggesting we take staff time, not do your other work. I'm saying let's use it as a living document that we refer to. That's part of our conversation. Let's be flexible, open, and realize that in order for us to get benefit from the plan, it has to be uppermost in our mind. That's all I'm asking.
I just want to add that maybe to add some context that in the past we have reviewed the strategic plan on a quarterly basis, and we did it twice a year, and last year we didn't do it at all. And so if we are moving away from utilizing the strategic plan to counterbalance our effectiveness, that to me has always been what we have done. But if we're moving away from that, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I hope, that if we're moving away from that perspective, then that may be okay too. But there has been a standard or a practice that has been done in terms of keeping the board in line with the checks and balances that we've ascribed to accomplish certain things. We have accomplished them. We are almost there in accomplishing them. So it doesn't, in terms of everybody's understanding, we have these presentations so that everybody is on the same page. You know, we can read the materials on our own, but having a presentation, having the board discuss it, allows all of us to have a meeting of the minds so that we're all in alignment with what was discussed. So I don't think that the strategic plan discussions should not happen or that they should happen in a certain way. It's just that we should have the same expectations on when we can review that information and when that presentation will come forward. I think that may be essentially what you may have been trying to get at, Trustee Mustafa, in terms of the cadence of when we would be reviewing that information, because in the past we had. Last year we did it. In this year, like Village Manager Wachtel said, that we would, when the new board comes, that is something that will be reintroduced. So it's not an all or nothing, but let's have an understanding of what the expectation is. That's all.
I think that's fair, and I also think that an annual review is the goal. However, other priorities took precedence this past year, and I'm sorry, did you?
No.
And so, yes, we'd like to get back to that. we'd like to get staff to get back to that cadence. Anything else, Trustee
No,
Mustafa?
I'm good.
Trustee Bradley Scott?
I took a moment because I just am not feeling well right now, and I'm going to excuse myself. No, I have nothing else.
You need to leave. Okay. Trustee Daggett?
No, nothing further.
Trustee Driscoll?
Nothing further.
Trustee Lofton?
I'll be very brief with this since we're speaking of the strategic plan. I'm not going to beat it up anymore. We had a very, very keen and important element in that, and that is economic development. And we have done well. We've had a lot of activity with economic development. And I anticipate, because I have faith, that we're going to have more. And in doing that, we will have choices in the not-too-distant future. It may be a good idea to further our plan from the strategic plan on economic development, at least, and engage everyone in the community in this process now. We've done a lot to get us to that point. And I think we should have later, not tonight, a discussion about a commission that supports economic development in Flossmoor. So I'll lay that out and leave it that way because it's late.
Thank you so much. Trustee Mitros?
I think we still have an economic commission on the books, don't we? Is it gone? Okay. There was one before.
There's a municipal code for it.
There was economic commission. Hey Jen, just a quick question for you. With the repaving of the streets and everything, how's our maintenance where we're actually repairing the cracks? Is that coming along too? I hope we expand on that. And the reason they did my street last year, and yeah, it's, but it's saving, it's giving us more time on the pavement, and I'm really proud that we're doing that.
Yeah, it seems to be working well. We did a lot the last 2 years. Our programs, we've kind of caught up with what we could do, so each year moving forward now, including the FY26, our program would be 50,000 or less each year, I think. And yeah, we've caught up and we're going to keep doing it. It seems to be working pretty well so far. I like to see it in 5 years and see how it is performing.
Well, I hope we'll expand on it because I think it saves us money and it prolongs the life. So.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Clerk McDonald?
I have two things. Speaking of road repairs, and in Bridget's presentation, she was talking about the casino money being used for the roads. In case anyone is not aware, the casino is now open 24 hours. So do you want to help contribute to our roads? And there's one food establishment in there that is open 24 hours. So I wanted to share that. And then number two, sometimes the board, we receive emails from other communities, organizations, letting us know about different things going on, other places. And we've received some before from Park Forest, Nathan Manilow Theater at Freedom Hall. And I'm sharing this because I've talked to a couple of people about a concert I went to on Saturday and they've never heard of this place. So I wanted to share it. It was amazing. Went to a concert on Saturday night. I would suggest having dinner in Flossmoor first and then going to a show at that theater, but it's very professional, free parking. And on May 10th, they're having a Black Voices in Cabaret show. So that they're already promoting. And the one I went to was the first Spanish concert that they'd ever had there, and they were very excited.
This is in Governor State.
No, this is not. This is in Park Forest. I can't tell you the address, but
it's down there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get their email.
Yeah, we do.
So
big summer program.
That's it. Just wanted to share.
Acting Village Attorney, any comments?
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Thank you. Come back again. Village Manager. Nothing. All right, I don't have anything either. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night. Thanks everybody for being here.